The police departments across the country, it doesn't matter if you live in Maine, it doesn't matter if you're in Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Idaho, Ohio, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York, Baltimore, Pennsylvania, right? Seattle, Portland. It doesn't matter where you are as a police officer. Police officers are deployed 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You don't call 911 and get a message, hey, sorry, we're not at the phone right now because we're off. Please leave a message at the beep and we'll get back to you to handle your emergency as when we can, right? You call 911, somebody picks up. 911 operator, what's your emergency? Hi, I'm having a medical emergency. Hi, my boyfriend's trying to kill me. Ma'am, sir, just be calm, stay calm. The police are on their way. Talk to me, da-da-da-da-da. And police show up 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 135. In this episode, I speak with Frank Yera. Frank is a police officer with the New York City Police Department. This was an incredible conversation. I can't wait for you to check it out. To watch this episode, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. To listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Frank. Frank Yura, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here, man, brother. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, a long time coming, and I didn't even know it. Meaning,
Me neither.
we were having a conversation. We live close to each other,
Yep.
obviously, and
Yep.
we were talking about all different types of stuff. And then just casually, you're like, "Yeah. No, I'm a police officer in New York City," and I'm like. And then you kept talking about, whoa, go back to what you just said.
Yeah.
You're a what?
Yeah, I kind of roll over it.
And then we did our own little podcast that could have been recorded outside
Yeah.
for like an hour and a half. So I'm like,
California's own nature, right? So it's good to be outside.
yeah. So when you said you were open to doing this, it was a no-brainer. Like, 'cause we've never had any type of conversation from someone with your type of experience and what you do. And first of all, thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's it's a unique platform. I know we live in a world of social media, so we live relatively close to each other. So when I always just see you guys bring equipment and do your podcast, and I was more than open to doing it. I think there's a big misconception in the world we live in today, right, with policing and just with the millennials and all the things that are going on. So I'm excited to be here. I'm happy to be able to share my voice and lend the expertise onto the insight world of policing. And I'm grateful to be here. So thank you so much.
So I think what may be best is let's start with your background.
Sure.
And maybe work our way up to how you became a police officer.
Yeah. So my background's a little unique. I'm 38 years old, right? I'm born in New York City, raised in New York City. I'm of Puerto Rican descent. My mom is, my mom and dad are Puerto Rican. My family and history comes from Puerto Rico. Lived in New York my whole entire life. I got 4 sisters. Grew up kind of in the inner city of New York City, right? So kind of what most people outside of the city call like the slums, but I call home, or was home for me. When I had a normal childhood. My dad was in my life till about 12. And then, just as nature has it, things happen. And, parents and my mom and dad separated. My dad went his own way. My mom, who's my mom and dad, held down the fort. And then my stepdad was fortunate enough to come in when I was about 14. He's been in my life ever since. But I had a fairly normal childhood. My mom worked really hard. She is the definition of hard work. Seeing her bust her chops to work 3 jobs to provide for me and my sisters definitely instilled hard work in myself at a young age, and I didn't even know it. Right, went to regular public school. One way or another, the gods blessed me with the ability to play sports, baseball in particular. So that was kind of like my first love. Played that since I was 5. Went to high school in Brooklyn, which I don't know if many people are familiar. Right, there's New York State, and then there's New York City, and then the city has 5 boroughs. Right, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, and then Staten Island, which no one really considers Staten Island a borough, but whatever. I grew up in Manhattan, Lower East Side. If anyone knows where Cat's Deli is, the famous Cat's Deli, where you pay an arm and a leg for a pastrami sandwich, that's kind of my neck of the woods where I grew up at. Like I said, I played baseball since I was 5. I was fortunate enough to get looked at an early age to go to a school, shout out Grand Street campus, AKA Progress High School in Brooklyn and in Bushwick. I was able to go there. I was scouted to go there to play ball. And where I'm from, you know, as I'm sure you know, most people, of Spanish descent or African American descent are really good. Just so happens to be really good in sports. And I come from a low income family, so I knew at a very young age, if I wanted to get out and succeed, it was either sports or the military. And for me, I didn't choose sports. Sports chose me, specifically baseball. I got scouted to go to the school. I went there for 3 years, and then me and my stepdad, who like I said, he's my dad. We moved down. Myself and him moved down to South Carolina just to give me a better opportunity at a young age to kind of get away from the inner city drama and stuff that happens all over the city. With you come out your house at 13, 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, and you're seeing crack needles, drugs, and people using and abusing, that type of thing could really steer you in the wrong direction. So for me to be able to kind of get out of that at a young age, to kind of go down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which was a total complete culture shock for me. Coming from New York, I was able to finish my last year of high school down there. And then I got scouted to play in North Carolina college baseball. And then kind of the journey started, right? From North Carolina, I had a buddy, my best friend, who we've been knowing each other for 25 years, played in Texas, and I kind of got the chance to see racism at an early age, and down in North Carolina, where just things weren't working out, just being called certain names and did different things. I kind of try to remove myself from that, because for me it was all about the love of the game, and I wanted to put myself in the best position to succeed, so that I can get my family out of the turmoil and things that they were dealing with in the inner city, especially my mom and sisters. Transferred over to a school in Texas, in a small town in the panhandle of Texas, called Clarendon College. Played there for 2 years. Then got a little homesick and came back to in 2009. I came back home to New York City, and I played in Farmingdale State College in Farmingdale, Long Island, under the head coach Keith Osick, who was he was a former major league player. And that's when I kind of became into my own, right? Became an amazing baseball player, an amazing young man, had a good head on my shoulders, and kind of learned how to start fending for myself, between South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, and in Farmingdale. When you go out at those ages, you got to grow up. Fast forward to that, I played 2009 to 2011. I played a little ball after that, in some summer leagues and things like that. And then once that didn't work out, it was kind of like, what am I going to do now? And then that led me to having a friend that kind of worked in the security industry. And one day I was sitting on my mom's couch, kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do next. This was kind of the 2011, end of 2011, going into 2012. And I had a buddy who worked in the security industry, for, we call it the private sector, for high profile celebrities, which he needed some help one day, gave me a phone call. And, 30 pounds lighter, I looked really good in the suit. The skin was really tight, and I had no beard. So he asked me, he needed help one day. He was like, hey, I got this family coming in from, overseas somewhere, and I just need help guarding a door. And we're short a man. The family's very wealthy. They're going to pay you X amount of dollars, and I didn't really need the money because I had money put aside from playing. But I did it, and it was, without even me knowing it, it was like I fell in love again, right? I got that second wind of like passion. I did the detail for about 3 weeks. That family left, and again, not sure one way or another why the security guards chose me, but that family came back in town like 6 months later, and he had that contract, and they asked for me. So I wasn't doing nothing. I was kind of just helping my family out at that time, job to job here and there, and put on my suit again, went back and helped them out. And that really kind of took me into a deep dive of what the world of the private sector is. Started doing my own research, and, you come across a lot of things. Did my own research, kind of went down the rabbit hole. That led me 2012 to kind of learning that a lot of the industry, as far as to be successful, you have to come out to the West Coast, to California. And at that time, I met someone who was living in the West Coast, a young female that I'm no longer with. But I thought I was coming for love. But that was the best decision I ever made. November 23rd, 2012, I decided to pack my bags and travel across the country, leaving everybody that I knew, ever known. I only knew one person on the West Coast, which was the young female that I was speaking with at the time. And November 23rd, 2012, I packed my bags with like $7,000 in my bank account, came out west, and that led me to one of the best decisions, the hardest decisions I ever made, but one of the best decisions I ever made. That allowed me to kind of branch off and learn about the private sector and kind of take a deep dive into that, working my way up, to what we see now on the YouTubes and all these social media platforms of all these private security guards, traveling all over the world. Usually that's not how it starts. You start at the bottom, which I did. So I went through every level from, the clubs and networking. I'm really good at talking to people, I guess. And that allowed me to kind of work my way up. And, I met people along the way, made networking contacts, and that led me to a 13-year career in the private sector, working with some of the most influential people that you could possibly think of: Fortune 500 companies, CEOs, wealthy families, protecting them and their families all over the country. So yeah, that led me into that. And there was still something missing, right? There was a piece missing in me. Not to get too long-winded, but there was a piece missing in me, and I still had a yearn for to serve in a higher purpose. In 2000, I did the private sector from 2000, the end of 2012, all the way up until 2022. And then I was fortunate enough in 2022 to kind of get a break in law enforcement. And that led me to work for the United States Federal Reserve as a federal police officer, protecting, the economy, so to speak. Being a kid coming from, low income housing to now, at that point, serving, the United States Federal Reserve and being in front of millions and millions of dollars, right, helping protect that, the banking economy essentially, was a huge success for me. I already felt like I had won at life, right? And so I did that for about a year and a half. And then there was still that burning desire of fulfillment. Like I felt like I wasn't getting enough fulfillment in serving on the level that I felt that I should be serving at. And that I did that for about a year and a half with the Federal Reserve, and then that led me to being able to take a position with the New York City Police Department, which is my hometown, and the NYPD. And I felt like that was the best decision I could have ever made. Outside of having my daughter, that was the best decision I could have ever made, because it gives me that sense of fulfillment. I feel like that I'm able to serve the people and the community that I was raised in, not essentially necessarily the same community, but I work in one of the five boroughs. But being able to serve those people that look just like me, that are less fortunate, just like I was, gives me that sense of purpose. So I currently serve now as a New York City police officer. Been in that role for about coming up on 2 years now.
All right, thank you for
I
that.
know that was a mouthful, but I wanted to give
No,
you.
it painted the picture of
Cool.
how the journey. It's very. First of all, what position in baseball?
I was a center fielder, 30 pounds lighter before, when I could really run. I mean, I could still run if I have to, but I was a center fielder. I was really, really good. I wasn't super talented like some of these, kids you see, but again, at a young age, seeing my mom work real hard, I knew that what separated me from a lot of other people was work ethic, right? While kids were playing PlayStation, playing, maybe skipping rocks outside, or playing freeze tag, or, Johnny Come Over, which is a big game, in the inner city. I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, running hills or doing sprints. Me and my best friend, we actually went to the same high school. So, and a couple other kids, that we grew up with. So we would all travel together. We would have a workout regimen, a workout schedule, and that really kept me, on task. And it gave me that sense of like, okay, cool. I know that I may not be as talented as a lot of these other kids, but the one thing that I have going for me is that while they're sleeping, they're getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they're having, cream cheese jelly bagel with an orange juice. I've already got 3 hours on them. I've already been in school at 5:30, right? Which we had to take the train which is like an hour and a half ride. I was already in the gym. By 7 o'clock, I was already showering, getting ready to have something to eat, feeling that first step of accomplishment, because I've put in the work already while they're just getting up. So I knew at an early age, if I kept that on, that no matter what I did in life, even though at an early age, baseball was the only thing I wanted to do. Right. But I knew that at an early age, if I continued to work hard and keep this same work ethic up that my mom, my stepdad, shout out to my dad, Tom, they showed me, I knew that no matter what I did, I knew that I would always be somewhat successful. I didn't know exactly in what. Obviously, I thought baseball was going to be the thing for me, but then when reality hits and it doesn't work out like you plan it to or envision it, I think that's where that work ethic comes in. What do you do now when you get smacked with reality and what you wanted to do your whole entire life doesn't pan out? That's where that work ethic comes in. Okay, it's just another bump in the road. We've been here before. That doesn't change the routine. That doesn't change the work ethic. All it changes is the destination, right? So
So that's why when private security came, you probably took that same mentality.
yeah,
Right
yeah.
into that.
I think the thing that makes most people unsuccessful is two things. One, they talk more than they listen, and two, people want the results, but they don't want to put the work in, right? And so it's always been the opposite for me. Um, I'm willing to put the work in and enjoy that process, and then I don't like saying at the end, but because our evolution is always evolving and continuing. We're never ending until we go to sleep forever. But I knew that if I could just put my head down, work, not have to look at the clock, not have to worry about the results, I know that those results at the end will come. Right. Sometimes we all have to go through a little bit of pain and on the other side of that is success. Right. Whatever your version of success is. And for me, I knew that if I just keep working hard, right, because I was born destined to lose already. Right. I grew up in a house full of, my three sisters, my mom, Section 8. You know what I mean? No dad until my stepdad came along, but no dad, no, my biological dad left, right, which crushed our family to a degree for a little bit. Um, you're seeing drugs every day. You're seeing people, steal, family members who are on drugs, right? It's kind of like the odds are stacked against you already. So for me to be sitting here right now with you on your podcast, your amazing podcast, have a beautiful daughter, have a beautiful wife, fiance, should I say? I've already won
Yeah,
at
that's
life.
beautiful, man. Yeah.
So
When you probably, from all the things you mentioned, had to develop this awareness, I would think.
yeah, well, I think growing up in
Your
the inner
surroundings.
city, yeah, absolutely. Growing up in the inner city, my mom always, made sure that, hey, be careful. We would always say a prayer and keep your head on a swivel. And I think that instinctively, just and intuitively, I just grew that knack for like, well, I don't want to go down this street. Let me pay attention here. Let me look out here. And then, you don't know it, but intuitively you're doing those things because, you didn't grow up in a surrounding where it's 80 degrees, the white picket fence, people are watering their lawn. I don't think in my neighborhood you can water concrete. I mean, you could, but I don't really think no roses are going to grow, but just at an early age, just having that instinctive ability to like kind of be aware of your surroundings, that never leaves you, right? And I think we all have that. It's just some have it more heightened than others. And fortunately for where I grew up at, mine was a little heightened. And, having, three sisters, you're heightened already, right? Because, that protectiveness started from when they were young, right? I helped raise, my twin sisters that I have. I helped raise them when they were born. The only thing I didn't do was give them a bath, but everything else, right? I'm pretty good now with my daughter doing the hair, right? Putting clothes on, changing diapers. So I kind of got a head start and I didn't even know it, when I had my child. But protecting them and then being overprotecting of my mom, kind of, intuitively and instinctively having that kind of led me, I didn't even know it, obviously, when I got out of baseball, right into the path of the private sector and learning what that entails, the training, right? The learning how to use your senses, right? Your ability to see, hear at a heightened level, right? Understand and process information around you, right? Most people I don't want to say most, but the majority, I think it's safe to say, right? Walk through life, headphones on, especially now in this day and age, we are buried in their phones, right? Not knowing what's going on around them, right? Not understanding, hey, if you just pick your head up, take your head out of your phone, right? And just give a look of what's around you, that little spidey sense that we all have, it's there. And if you just look around, you'll pick up on it, right? But a lot of days and age we're buried in our phones now, so people don't pick up on it. So I guess at an early age, like I said, I've had that intuitive and instinctiveness to like be protective. And then when the private sector kind of came calling, out of the blue, that sense of calling came again, and then taking a dive into really understanding what that entails, right? Because I was new, I didn't really know anything about the private sector. I mean, you see all, the best way I describe it to people is kind of when you work for celebrities, it's one thing, but when you work for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, even though it's the same job you're doing, it's completely night and day, right? And I tell people the best way to describe for people who don't know is you see the Secret Service. Everybody knows who the Secret Service is. I'll ask you, when you think of Secret Service, what do you think? You're going to say probably 98% of what most people say. Correct, right? People see the guys with the suits, right? Earpieces, shades, hands crossed like this, right? That's only 5% of what the Secret Service does. I'll give you a little, I'll drop a little gem on the podcast, right? The Secret Service was formed. I don't want to butcher dates, so 19 something, but they were formed really to combat counterfeit money.
Really?
Yeah, they became, they became to what we know now, obviously just through the evolution of protection, but they were first formed to combat counterfeit bills back in the old days. But a small portion of what they do is what they call the PPD, which is a Presidential Protection Division, which you see the agents that, on the roofs with the binoculars and all those things. So I always found those things fascinating as I went through life. Like I said, and I didn't even know that I would get a chance to let alone have a career in it, but go to it at all, because, baseball was my number one thing. But yeah, 5% of what they do is just protection. You know what I mean? But that's what most people think of when you think about them. So that's the same thing that I had. That's what I thought. I was like, oh, yeah, private sector guys with the suits and the earpieces. I don't really like wearing suits. I'm more of a shorts kind of. That's why California is beautiful for me, because I'm more of a sweatpants kind of short kind of guy. Loose and relaxed. But I was completely wrong. I when I did my research, started doing my information on the private sector, I learned, what it entails and what it becomes and what can it become, and all the different. I think of the private sector like an onion. There's so many different layers to it, right? And that led me to kind of like learning and taking a deep dive, and then putting my own money into training, right? Which we can talk about, as we go along. But yeah, I mean, fast forward, here we are, and it's been a blessing.
I do have a question on the
Go
security.
ahead.
You said there's a huge difference between the celebrity
Yeah.
and CEO, and that's fascinating about
Yeah.
the counterfeit thing.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to end up going on a YouTube rabbit hole.
I
with
didn't
that
know
one.
either until I
Yeah.
actually like took a deep dive. At one point I was interested, but as I got up there in age, I'm a little older than most people probably think. But as I got up there in age, my time kind of passed. So being able to fast forward, being in the private sector and working with those guys here and there, because certain candidates that or clients or protectees that I worked for had political ties. So sometimes, working with the Secret Service very rarely would intertwine. And it's fascinating, because sometimes, you look at guys and you're like, man, how did you pass the test to get into this? Because you're kind of like dumb as a bucket of rocks, buddy. Some people are really good at testing, like book smart, but street smarts is not, it's not everything. But you had a question.
We're going to definitely, because that's actually one point. I remember so street smarts, bookmark, because we're definitely going to be bringing that
sure.
up again. So when you're protecting a big CEO or protecting a celebrity, what's the main difference between dealing with
That's a
those two
great
different clientele?
question, Sam. That's a great question. I think the main difference is there's good and bad, right? Again, being young, starting out in it, you're going based off what you know, right? I've never been starstruck. Excuse me. So when I got the opportunity, through networking, to work with some of these celebrities, like I said, I told you a few minutes ago that the executive protection world is what we call it, right? The private sector. It's like an onion. There's so many layers, right? And as you peel back the layers and you continue to peel back the layers, and by layers, I mean, for me, as far as diving into and learning the information, you kind of get a chance to see what it all is. Now, the difference between, to answer your question, between working with the, like a CEO of Fortune 500 company or like a celebrity, the main difference is itineraries and structure, right? When you work for a CEO like an Amazon, right? Like Jeff Bezos or like a Bill Gates or like whoever's the head of Google now or whoever's the head of YouTube, right? A lot of those CEOs, everything is very structured, right? And there could be challenges there too, depending on, who's holding the information that's supposed to give it to you and so on and so forth. But structure is the biggest thing, right? When you work in the private sector, as far as working with a celebrity, 9 out of 10 times, and I'm sure my other protectors out there who've done celebrity work will vouch for this. There's no structure. It's kind of chaotic, but that's a good thing because it forces you to have to think on your feet, to have to think outside the box. And I'll give you an example. I was working for a client here in Los Angeles, a celebrity. I won't name. Great person, great guy. But the chaos that we just talked about, there was never no structure. It was always, it could be a Saturday at 10 o'clock at night and you think that they're going to stay in. And then they tell you, you get a word from whether if they have an assistant or someone that, hey, in 30 minutes, so-and-so wants to leave and he wants to go to One Oak, which is, I'm not into the club scene no more because like I said, I'm an older man, but One Oak, if for those who know, on a Saturday night, in Los Angeles off Sunset Boulevard, is one of the most popular clubs, in the city. And so it's like, telling someone, let alone they want to go to one of the most popular clubs in the city, then they want a section and they want bottles. You first of all, you have limited time, right? And most of the time, what I mean by chaotic, like I said before, is at any given day, that detail could be a 3-man detail, meaning me and 2 other people. But 9 out of 10 times, it's just you. So now you have to worry about driving, right? Is the car set up? Is there gas, right? The route you're going to take. How's the traffic look? Because again, these people don't want to wait, right? Parking, working with the external security on the outside. Hey, I got so and so coming, blah 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 blah. Bottles. They want this. They want that. And in a perfect world, I would have went 4 hours, 5 hours prior to knowing this was going to happen and introduce myself, made all my, my contacts. You're telling someone 30 minutes prior to wanting to go, in one of the most popular, clubs in the city. Now you have to go and introduce yourself. There's people waiting online. There's the who's of who. There's Ferraris pulling up. There's Lamborghinis. This person's coming in there and renting out a section. These people are coming and throwing money. And now you're trying to introduce yourself when the club is open for business. It's kind of tough, let alone with 4 people or 3 people, let alone by yourself. So you got to rush down there, make contacts. You're sweating profusely, right? Because you're like, at the end of the day, that could be your last detail. If you don't get the table right, or you don't get the bottles that they asked for, if you don't get the private entrance, the backdoor entrance we called, right? Because they want to get in and they don't want to deal with paparazzi and get out. Dealing with paparazzi as well. So there's all these things that you're thinking about that you have to accomplish within that time frame, right? So it's very, very, very chaotic. However, if you can manage to succeed at that, when you go over 8 to 9 out of 10 times and you transfer over, and you get a chance, an opportunity to work on the corporate side of things, right? For, CEO of a Fortune 500 company or for a wealthy family that has a company that's very successful, most of the time it's very structured. So you're kind of like, this is a cakewalk. You're going to tell me I get a whole itinerary of what the whole day looks like. At 9 o'clock, he wants to be at the office. At 12, he's got a meeting with, ExxonMobil or whatever it may be. At 5, the missus is coming to meet him at dinner at this restaurant, and so it's like, oh, this is perfect. And you usually have the right amount of staff, right? Usually a driver, and you could be what we call the lead advance agent. So you're the guy who goes out and does all the logistical stuff, right? Learning the routes and reporting that back to the driver. Hey, I got parking secured for you when you arrive. You'll arrive here. When you show up, we're going to go let the client know they're going to be at this table, this time. I'll receive them curbside. We'll go in. It'll be smooth. It'll be beautiful. Get them back in the car, and then they go home. Now, 9 out of 10 times, it doesn't always work like that. There's always some hiccups, but having that ability to have all those things in front of you beforehand is amazing. So that's the big difference is the structure and the information most of the time you're given prior, and everything's a lot more structured on the corporate side versus the celebrity side.
That was a great breakdown.
I hope so.
Yeah, I was
Sorry, it was a little long-winded.
No, because I was going to say too, with the club thing, you're also introducing alcohol into the equation, which not only for maybe the person you're with, but just the environment you are in.
100%.
You're around people who are intoxicated, so you have to be paying attention to that.
100%.
That makes a lot of sense how you separated those
right.
two.
And the biggest thing I've learned is there's in the private sector, whether you're doing a corporate, gig for a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a celebrity, there's no such thing as no. There's just not right now. Right. And what that means is I learned, and that really helped me in life, and as well as, carrying on in my career, even into my law enforcement career. There's no such thing as no. You're just not asking the right question, or you're not the information that you're trying to, to get, or the answer that you're trying to get. You're not asking the right question, or you're not putting the information in the right way. Everybody perceives information different, and everywhere takes things different. And I'll give you an example. What that means is, for example, if I'm working for a client that wants to go to dinner, let's say it's a celebrity, right? And there's no parking. All the valet is, okay, the guy doesn't know me. He doesn't care who I am. He doesn't give a crap on who's arriving. He stands there and he sees celebrities all day, right? But what I've learned is learning how to read people. Right? The answers are all over their face when you ask them for something. You just got to pay attention, right? Again, it goes back to what we're saying. People do more talking than listening. And so I had great mentors in the private sector that taught me, listen. If you listen, then you'll be able to hear what the person's saying, verbally or non-verbally, right? Meaning body language. Our body language give off things all the time. People just don't listen. They don't pay attention, and they don't listen with their ears, right? So being able to have that and learn, I knew that there's no such thing as no. I just have to pick up on what you're putting down and process that information, and then come to an agreement. And for example, the example that I just gave you, client wanted to go to dinner. It was a very famous restaurant, Craig's Restaurant, which is off Melrose in Hollywood. The who's who go there, right? It's a great Italian restaurant. You can name any celebrity right now. There's a 99.9% chance at some point they've been there. This was a Saturday night, right? Packed, right? I knew I had a great rapport with people on the inside. Hey, such is coming. Can they get their regular table? Sure, no problem. We'll make it happen for you. And taking care of people is a big thing, and I'll get to that. But the parking was giving me trouble, right? The client wanted to pull right in front, right? I had the option to get them in the back door, beautiful. No, we want to park right in front, right? Well, when you got a Lamborghini, you got a Rolls Royce, you got so on and so on the cars, sorry, man, we're full, right? But I knew that just by looking off his body language, he thinks that parking attendant at the time thinks that I'm just a regular Joe Smo, excuse my French, I don't know if I can curse on here, but
you can say whatever you
regular asshole who's just coming and thinking that, hey, I need this. Well, first of all, you're coming into that man's house, right? That parking lot is that man, whether it's the front of the restaurant, side of the restaurant, wherever it is, that domain is that person's house, right? I wouldn't come into your house and just open your refrigerator and take your orange juice without asking for a cup of orange juice. Hey, Sam, is it okay if please have a cup of orange juice, right? And I use that analogy to say that that's that man's home, in the sense of that's his job. So I'm not going to come demanding. I'm going to come politely asking, in a way that no one's probably ever done it before. Because when the industry is very big, but it's also very small. So you see a lot of people, they do how they act and how they move. They think that they're God, and they're gonna come in. Oh, I work with, whether it's Drake or this person or that person. You need to give me. They don't need to give you shit. You're in their house. So I picked up on that, and I, just seeing how people would treat these people. And a wise man once told me, "You treat the garbage man like the CEO. You treat the janitor like the CEO, right? Because you never know who's who. You never know who knows who and who knows what. How do I know that guy is not really good with the owner?" So I treated him with much respect. Hey, he was Spanish. So I talk, use my, my Spanish, because I do speak Spanish. Spoke to him in Spanish. Hey, look, I got such. I understand you're really busy. You got my word. I'm going to take care of you and your entire staff. Please, just can you do me the favor and help me out? Get me a good spot in the front. And I learned that. Again, that was all I needed to say, right? But that's because that's what his body language was picking up on. He was thinking I was like every other asshole who works in the private sector come in demanding. Papa, I'm not going to demand nothing. I'm going to come and ask you politely, introduce myself. Sometimes it takes you to introduce yourself. Sometimes you have to name drop, meaning who the client is, which I don't really like doing because of, just being professional, and, we sign NDAs and things like that. But sometimes you have to name drop. Sometimes it takes a little name drop. Sometimes it takes greasing the wheels, what we call it, having petty cash on you to, take care of the staff. Sometimes it takes some smiles and charm. I've used that sometimes too, for lack of a better word, but, it goes back to paying attention to what that person's saying, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. And I was able to get that spot, and the clients had a great night. And that little small detail, to most people like you and I, may be like, it's not a big deal, just park in the back. But to the client, it's a big deal, right? That can mean, hey, I don't want this guy driving no more. If you were driving, he drives too fast, hits too many bumps. We didn't get to park in the front. I don't want this guy. Find another place for him. Put him at the house and let him watch cameras. So again, those little small details, right? The fine print of that parking spot, to us, it's not a big deal. To them, it is. So how do we get what we need without having a quote unquote badge, right? Because as a cop, when you work in the private sector, you have a badge, hey, brother, and they're like, oh, no problem, whatever you need, because they see the badge. But how do you get that same treatment without having the badge? It goes back to listening, picking up on what they're saying, either verbally or non-verbally, and then using your soft skills, what we call, which is the communication skills, to get what you need. Most people don't have that.
And I think that's a perfect transition. Now that we have this background, and I think leading into
Absolutely.
now your experience as a police officer in
Yeah.
New York. And I know there's 10 million ways we can go with this.
For sure.
But I
you
think
wanna go,
maybe
I'm
let's start out so how has your experience been? Or tell us what it's like to be a police officer in New York City.
It's, I can't speak for anyone else, but I think it's like no other, right? I mean, again, I'm a little biased. I get to wear the patch, in my home city that I grew up in. So it's different if, I get it, if I get a chance to work in LAPD, or if I put the patch on for Burbank PD or Santa Monica PD. You still have that pride and fulfillment in the sense of you're protecting the community and you're serving with a purpose, right? That higher purpose. But for me, being able to, wear the uniform, put the patch on, right, and the uniform on, and serve the community that raised me into the man that I am in today, right? You can't. I mean, you can't even put that into words. But it's like no other, right? New York City is I call the center of the universe. Everybody from all over the world, millions and millions and millions of people travel from all over the world to come to New York City. I think don't quote me, but I want to say 10 million people that live in New York City. And then you got, millions and millions more that come in from all over the world. So when you think about it, it's a daunting task, right? And it's also kind of scary, right? I'll give you another gem. New York City, I don't know if you've ever been.
Never been.
Their subway systems, for most people that, not from there, are very chaotic, I guess. Like, it's confusing, maybe. But it's to think that we all know New York City's an island. It has over 7,000 miles of train track. I'll say that again, 7,000 miles of train track. From Manhattan alone, you can get to any borough. Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, maybe not so much Staten Island, but you can get to any of the boroughs, most majority, through the train. Crazy, right?
That's a lot.
but so to be able to have the ability to go through training, and I think for me it was a little backwards because I was in the private sector first, so learning about attention to detail, learning carrying a weapon in the private sector, really going and honing your skills in the firearms training, learning counter surveillance, right, learning driving, the tactics, medical. I have a big medical background. I'm an EMT. I don't serve on a rig or work for a hospital, but I am nationally registered and certified, as an EMT. We call it TCCC as well, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care, which is more so you see in the military. It's really more to handle like major wounds, like gunshot wounds and things like that. So learning all that in the private sector and then having the opportunity to go work in New York City, in my hometown, kind of put me ahead of the ball game. Plus being from there, speaking the lingo, understanding whether I'm in Queens or Brooklyn or Bronx or Manhattan, I'm gonna come upon people like me, right? It's kind of understanding of like if you never if you're not from the hood, so to speak, or from the inner city, people who didn't grow up in it, not all, but most may find it challenging because they're not from there, so to speak. So for me, even though I was raised there and left, being able to go back and work in that environment, I'm from it. So I speak it, I know it, I can smell it, I can see what it walks like, what it talks like, what it looks like. And so that put me ahead of the ball game. Right. And again, working for the private sector, doing all that tactical training, and then taking that to the Federal Reserve, where I worked for a short period of time, and then taking the things that I learned there, coming on in New York City kind of all put me ahead of the ball game, even though I know I did things backward because most people, they out of high school or college, they go work as a police officer straight away. And that's the only tactics, and not all of them, but most of them, what you learn in the academy, which is 6 months, that I did, just like any other regular academy for any police organization. It's 6 months. Um, it doesn't necessarily prepare you, right? And so me going into the academy, going there 6 months, I kind of was ahead of the game. Plus, I'm a little older than most kids nowadays. You see them, they're 21, 22, 23, 24, right? 25, for excuse my French, for lack of a better word. They're just, coming off their mom's couch, from eating junk food and freaking playing Xbox, playing Call of Duty, and they're like, their parents are like, you need something to do with your life, and they're like, I'll just go take the test, whatever. And now you're giving that person a badge and a gun. The short time that you have in the academy, that 6 months, flies by like that, and it doesn't really prepare you for the streets. You learn the law, right? You learn about dealing with domestic violence. You learn about the criminal charges. You learn about dealing with geriatric people, which is elderly people, dealing with all sorts of things, traffic incidents, and you're reading about it, right? You're reading on, this is what it's like to da 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 da, but nothing's gonna prepare you, especially as a New York City police officer. Nothing will prepare you than hitting the streets, than being able to get out there and walk the beat, so to speak. Because I think New York City is one of the only departments left that still do, just because of the geographical dynamic, still does foot patrol. I spent almost 9 months on foot, standing a post. So we call it the foot beat, which is you're on a post, and those four little corners, that's your post. So, and just there, you see so many things, dude, so many things, and it's so crazy, right? It's like a police organization and a city that is it brings its own challenges. It's hard to even put it into words, but one day it could be great, the next day it could be super chaotic, right? Your day one could be, I don't want to say sunshine and rainbows, but it could be quiet, which we never use when we're working because that's like a jinx. And then your day five, which is, your day before you finish, and then you go home and you have usually 3 days off because it's a rotating schedule. You can have an arrest. You can get a call for shots fired. You can get a call for armed robbery, or, a 10-10 man with a knife, or whatever it may be. So there's no such thing as a routine day. For me specifically, I was already ahead of the game in the sense that I'm a very strong-minded person. I knew, coming from the private sector, carrying weapons, having my tactical background, having my medical background, I knew, and then going back home, I knew it's like having the answers to the test, so to speak. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew what to expect, especially in the millennial days that we're in now, with social media and the riots, and this misconception of all police are bad and we hate all cops. All cops are they do ill will things. I will say that there are a handful of bad cops on there, unfortunately, that overtakes and overshadows a lot of great men and women that do real great police work, from regular beat cops, men and women, to detectives, men and women that are detectives, to sergeants and lieutenants and captains, as well as the people serving in a specialized unit, which I hope to serve in soon at one day. New York is the land of opportunity. The NYPD is the land of opportunity. We got over, I lost count, over thousands. I don't want to say thousands, but a lot of opportunity to serve in different dynamics, right? Whether you want to be a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, a chief, or you can go a specialized unit route, aviation, working in the water, right, with the scuba dive team, K9. We have a counterintelligence, counter surveillance unit. We have an ESU, emergency service, which I'm hopefully looking to serve at that capacity at a higher level soon. ESU is the SWAT unit of what other organizations around the country, they call it SWAT. We call it emergency service, and the reason being is because they don't deal with just one thing. They deal with a multitude of things, from suicidal people to mentally challenged people to people wanting to jump off the bridge to saving a kid that's on a fire escape that the building's burning down. So they deal with a multitude of things. So there's a lot of intelligence, right? So for me, being able to have that opportunity to learn the job while you're on patrol. On patrol is really, you're in the mix. You're on the ground floor. You're going to jobs. You're answering calls. You're helping people, right? Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's a mentally ill person having an episode, um, it could be a man with a gun, right? Car stops. The two most dangerous jobs that you can ever respond to as a police officer are car stops and domestic violence calls. So it's never a routine day. But again, like I told you, I was ahead of the game because I was very strong minded. I had prior experience. Plus, I consider myself to be a sponge, meaning that I don't just say, hey, well, this is what I've done in the Federal Reserve. This is what I did in the private sector. So this is how it has to be. No, I use those past experiences and I come into the next situation very open minded, which will allow me to see what's going on, process that information, and then utilize my skills that I've learned in the academy along with my previous line of work to put forth the best option to be able to handle that call, right? Again, there's nothing that I went to the academy for 6 months and there's still things on the street that I've seen or that I've been a part of or calls that I went to that I'm kind of like, okay, I got to assess this. How do we? But it's more fast paced, right? You're sitting at a desk in the academy, reading a book, watching PowerPoints, going to gym, eating the horrible lunch that they have, and working out and learning about things, but nothing can prepare you for that experience that you're going to hit on the street, right? Not you call 911 right now. I come to your door. I don't know what I'm walking. I know what the job description says, but this is your domain. I don't know what I'm walking into, right? It can be just you having a mental episode, or maybe you arguing with your wife and it's going to go, either you're going to leave or it can go another way. So there's so many things to think about on the job when you're handling calls, and nothing can prepare you for being able to out of the academy than that experience, right? Nothing prepares you. Whatever you do in life, you may learn from it. You read books, you go to class, but nothing's going to prepare you when you go to your actual do your job. You're like, whoa, man, I know the books say this is, I read about it, but now I'm here. That's where the street smart comes in. That's where thinking on your feet, thinking 10 steps ahead, right? Assessing a call as you're on your way to it, coming up with a plan with your partner, because we work in twos. Hey, this is what I think. Oh, hey, I've been to this address before. The steps go like this. This person's house goes like this, and me, I'm really good tactically, and really pretty tactically sound. My partner that I work with, he's been on the job a little longer than I have. So he's very good with paperwork, which I'm getting there. I'm catching up. But he's good also at coming up with plans and reading the jobs out as we go to them, so that we can formulate a plan so you don't just walk in blind, right? So to answer your question, there's never no such thing as a routine day. It's always constantly changing, constantly evolving. And so you have to be able to think on your feet and be able to think 10 steps ahead, right? Not get sucked into the fog of tunnel vision of what's going on right in front of you, being able to understand what's going on in front of you, but understand that I'm talking to you, but I know that there's this over here, there's that over here, this is going over here, this person's walking behind me, which, we never like to do, but constantly assessing what's going on around you while processing the information on what's going on in front of you, which can be challenging as a rookie, so to speak, right? Because one thing I don't have to teach you or anybody is tunnel vision, right? We all do that on our own sometimes, right? Whether it's walking down the street or getting locked into something on your phone or locked into something on the street, and you focus on that and you don't realize, there's somebody across the street looking at you, or there's, people been that same person's been following you for 3 blocks or so. So it's constantly evolving and constantly changing, and it's a never ending cycle of high intensity, which is tough sometimes. you get drained when when that adrenaline comes down and you're home safe with your family and you're laying in your comfortable bed, drinking that cup of water or that cup of tea or that cup of cocoa, whatever it may be, with your family. When that adrenaline comes down, you're kind of like, it's almost like you did like you ran like a marathon or something, So
Yeah, no, and you mentioned it right there, the street smarts thing.
yeah,
And now that I'm really glad you went through your backstory, because I think it really hit me. I'm like, wow, like you went in becoming a police officer with so much experience, life experience, doing the private security in the private sector. And you make a good point. Like people that come fresh in with none of that type of
for sure.
experience, um, it just really, like you said, and I remember we had talked about that outside. You can read all the books, you can watch all the videos, and that goes with a lot of stuff, right?
Everything. It's not just police work.
Yeah, you can't replicate experience.
For sure. There's no substitute for that.
Substitute. There you go.
I was fortunate enough to have a life before being a police officer, to have different, a couple different careers. And even though I have tactical experience and medical experience, and I've done a lot of training with, 3-letter agency people. Shout out to Progressive Force Concepts. They're based in Las Vegas. I've trained with them a lot. A lot of them are former and active law enforcement, former special operations in the military, and the training that they put on is like second to none. I mean, I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get nothing from them, but just their ideology, their thinking, how they think outside the box, really helped me prepare, kind of, even though I didn't go into the law enforcement at that specific moment, but the training, whether it was the counter surveillance or the handgun training, right? The security training, the driving training, the thinking training, they allow you to put your thinking cap on and give you their thought process on, hey, I know that society and law enforcement and the private sector says that this is how you handle it, but maybe take a look at it this way and try this out. Results may vary, but try this out and you'll see which one works better for you. And their famous thing is, if you don't believe us, just try it. Right? They'll show you, they always demonstrate things, and you learn as you continue to go to them, like, oh, wow, you start to open your mind and broaden your mind to, there's different ways to solve these problems. That's really what I'm getting at. So being able to train with them allowed me to learn that, and they put you in a very, very high stressful situations, right? Like if I took you to the range right now and I gave you, one of my guns and I'm like, hey, we're going to shoot, you're going to shoot this target, stand there. You're just going to point and shoot. Nobody's shooting back at you, right? That's a safety thing. You're not going to die at the range. You're going to finish. You're going to come home and everything's going to be great. But if I take you to the range and I'm like, hey, you're going to shoot, and I start unannounced to you, I'll even tell you, hey, you're going to shoot. You're going to walk forward, right, towards the target, and you're going to shoot. And I'm going to be honking horns. There's going to be music blasting like Metallica. Strobe lights are going to be going, right? And you need to focus and make that shot. Even though again, you're not going to die. You're going to go home at the end of it. You get to see how your body reacts under stress. And that was another great thing. They put us in a lot of high, intense, stressful situations that you cannot replicate that. I mean, you can't fake that data, right? Your body's going to react how your body's going to react, right? And unless you've been in that situation before, you don't know how your body's going to react. So being able to constantly train like that kind of prepared me for, even though there's no replica for experience, but it kind of prepared you to, hey, okay, I know I'm going to this call. I know it's whatever it is, but having the street smarts, being in those high intense situations allows your body and your mind to process that information. Because if you train, even when I wasn't training with them, I was training at a height, whether it's physical, running, push-ups, sit-ups, dips, running with a vest on, whatever it may be, doing reps with my firearms, right? Safe and clear. Constantly putting myself in that high stress situation and then playing what we call the what if game, right? Well, as I'm breathing heavy, because I just did, 30 burpees, which are the worst workouts in the world. Whoever created that should kill themselves, but it is a great workout. Putting yourself in that stressful situation, the action questions, right? Like if I ask you to do 40 burpees right now, and then I ask you, hey, what's 2 + 2? You know the answer, right? Sitting here right now, 2 + 2 is 4. But when you did 40 burpees and your blood pressure's high and you're breathing heavy and you're just like, it takes a second for that to process, right? So if you constantly put yourself in that situation, right? What if I do, okay, we're running after this person, or we're running into a building because we got a call that there's a man with a gun. You're breathing heavy. 9 out of 10 times where I work, the elevators don't work, so you got to take the stairs, and it's usually on the 12th or 13th floor, right? Because New York has skyscraper buildings, and by the time you get up to the thing, I don't care who you are, you're like, man, that was a little bit of a run, right? Now you still have to process that information. What's going on? Watch my corners, so on and so forth. You're right. You're processing everything that's in front of you. As that stress, your blood pressure's high and you're breathing heavy and things and so on and so forth, carrying 30, 40 pounds of gear on top of that. So if you train like that, when your body gets into that situation, your brain and your body, it doesn't know the difference. It knows that, okay, we've been here before, right? It's not like, whoa, this is something new to the nervous system.
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I went on a little bit of a rabbit hole dive on YouTube of just different police pulling people over, encounters. And
yep.
I mean, this opens up a whole other thing,
free.
But you remind me of, there was an actual, and I'm paraphrasing the whole thing, but there was an altercation, and I mean, the police gave this person every opportunity. Like, they did not want to harm them at all. And the person just was just choosing that day. And then the officer they were using bean bullets or whatever at first.
Bean bags.
Yeah. Didn't face the guy.
Less lethal.
Yeah, and he just kept going. And then finally he came at one of them. And they had no choice but to shoot. And then the officer on the body cam, I mean, exactly what you're saying, like the breathing, he starts crying. He's like, I did not want to do that. It was really powerful because it really painted the picture. Like, everyone gets this, maybe we can go into misconceptions that the cops are bad. They're trying to take people out for no reason. And like, a lot of them are just trying to do their job. Like, that is the very last thing that they ever want to do.
No, you made a great point. And again, every police department, right, just for, argument's sake, every police department has different SOPs, which are standard operating procedures, right? All of them are going to vary across the nation, right? Some are able to do certain tactics, some are not, right? Some are able to do car chases, some departments are not. Just like I know New York, obviously depending on the severity of the situation, I'll give you a short story after, but they don't really want us doing car chases. And to a degree, I understand, because New York City is a very dense, populated place, right? No matter what borough you're in, we all know New York City, if there's a small crack where they can build, they're going to build either vertically a building, sideways, backwards, wherever, so it's very dense and populated. So for that reason, they don't really like, us doing car chases. But, depending on the situation, sometimes you might go deaf on the radio and you didn't hear that day. But, but that's a great point you bring in. There's a misconception, I think, across the country, and I can't speak for every city with every police department, but I know as a whole, I know enough to know that at least my department, right, we're not going out there trying to harm anyone. I don't want to go, I don't even want to arrest people, like, I'm a very level-headed person, right? I'll say it clean and out loud here. I've rolled through stop signs before, right? Sometimes I might have eaten a red light here and there, not as a police officer, but, as a regular civilian, we all make mistakes. We all do certain things. So for me, I try to always keep that in the front of my mind, because how hypocritical would I be, right? If I eat a red light, but then I pull you over for a red light, right? Or how hypocritical would I be if you roll through a stop sign knowing that I've done it before? Or you've been in the HOV lane with not two occupants, right? So have I. So I really try to be level-headed and think. Now, obviously, if it's like green, yellow, red, and you blow through that red light recklessly and without due regard for anybody, then that's a different story. Yeah, I'm going to pull you over, because for lack of a better word, you're being a dumbass, right? And reckless. You could have killed somebody, let alone yourself. So of course I'm going to pull you over. But we don't have no intention on going down there and harming people. I'm not looking to kill nobody. I don't want to arrest people, right? If I can talk somebody out of a situation that's a non-arrestable offense, then I will, But again, it goes back to that experience and that street smart. When the police get called and I show up to your home, I don't want to be there. I'd rather be, in New York City, you never know what you're going to get as far as weather. So most of the time it's 30 degrees, right? Whether you're on a footpost because there's no cars or you're in a car, I want to be in the car patrolling with with the heat on a little bit, right? Just roaming and seeing, making sure this, our sector, we call them, a certain square area of what we patrol, my unit, the unit that I'm in, is safe. I don't want to be in someone's house hearing yelling and screaming this, but sometimes you have to. And when I show up, I'm politely letting you know that, hey, I'm here now. So allow me to help you, right? You can't just open the door and be like, no, we're good. Boom. And then walk away. That's not how it works, right? I'm here. I'm here to help you. So allow us to help you, right? I'm respectfully and politely telling you when I show up, we're running the show. Now I'm going to be polite, respectful, and give you all the chances that I can possibly give you. But I usually say it goes two ways, A and B. A, you allow me to help you and we figure it out. Or B, you can go the other option and be an asshole, for lack of a better word, and make things difficult, but you're only making it worse for yourself, And so, but like getting back to what we said, I don't like to harm people. We're not trying to go out there and hurt people. We're really trying to, when we show up, figure out what's going on and figure out the best option that we can help you manage the problem, whatever that problem may be, from suicidal episodes to people with what we call EDPs, which is an emotionally disturbed person, which is very, very big now. Or it could be a man with a gun, or it could be someone that wants to jump off a roof, right? It's like at the end of the day, I'm not coming to be like, hey, jump, dude, I want to go on my lunch break. No, I have empathy, right? Just like the men and women that I work with, the majority of them, we all have empathy. We all want to see, first of all, me and my partner and go home safe, and we also want you to go home safe to your family, right? But sometimes we get this misconception where people see 2 minutes of a video on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, and police are bad, and look at this, why did they do this, and why did they do that, and like the segue you gave about the car stop, that's a very dangerous, like I said before in the interview, the two most dangerous things that we do on this job are car stops and domestic violence calls, right? Car stops, because when I stop a car for either eating a red light or rolling through a stop sign, or the big thing now, and especially in New York City, fake temp plates, fake temporary plates, right? So a lot of these people get plates from Georgia or Jersey, and they make them on the computer, or and they put it on there like it looks like a temporary plate, like you just bought it from a dealer and you're waiting for the real plates to go on, right? Like here, when we buy a car, right, sometimes they come with used cars, they come with regular plates already, or when you buy or lease a new car or whatever it may be, they come with dealer templates, right? And you got to wait 30 days or whatever it is for the new plates to come in. A lot of these people do that. But when I run the car, running means you put the numbers in the computer and it comes back either stolen, right? Meaning that somebody reported the car, whoever the owner is, most of the time they reported it stolen. It goes into the system so that we have scanners, for the most part, license plate readers. And either it'll hit, or if you just, something to the naked eye doesn't look right, you run it and it comes back stolen, or it comes back to nothing, which majority of the time means that the plate is fake. When I stop that car, it can be an 80-year-old grandma, and maybe there's a glitch in the system, because that happens sometimes, right? Who's just on her way to go see her daughter or son and grandchildren. Or it can be, and the majority of the time it does happen to be, someone who is part of a gang or has a record as long as my leg, right, is in a stolen car, is known to be violent and known to carry weapons. But I don't know that. All I know is what I got in front of me, that this is stolen, or this is coming back stolen. Me and my partner have to do an investigation. That's where tactics come in. That's where not getting tunnel vision. That's where, hey, brother, you go left, I go right. Or, hey, Sam, you're going to go on the right side passenger. You're going to talk to him. I'm going to watch that person's hands. If I see something that you don't see, if I see a gun, I'm going to call, I'm going to say, hey, Johnny, just so you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now, your name's Sam, but you and I know that Johnny means I see something is a gun the majority of the time, or something, whatever it may be. Most of the time it's a gun. We have code words for that. I see that, I'm alerting you to let you know what I see, right? And again, it's very dangerous, especially at nighttime, right? A lot of where I work, a lot of the cars, there's a lot of well-documented known gangs over there. A lot of cars we stop, Connecticut plates, so on and so forth. They're known gangbangers. And this is not their first time. We've seen these cars before. They just, it's like recycling. You stop them one time. Unfortunately, the system is broken. We arrest them for whatever. By the time you're done doing the paperwork the next day, working through the night, right, burning all these hours, they're out back at the precinct ready to get their property, ready to do it again. So it's like, but I don't know what I'm coming upon, right? I know that we've seen this car before. I've known that we can see through the windows. We know that they're possible gang members or whatever it may be, or we identify like, hey, that we know that guy. He lives at this place. He's a known documented gang member. He's known to be violent. He's known to carry weapons. I'm not going to stop you and say, hey, sir, I'm well within my rights to pull my firearm out and be like, hey, you're going to do exactly what I say when I say it. Do you understand me? I'm giving that sense of tone, letting you know that this is not a joke here. I don't want to hurt you, right? But I also have to protect myself, my life, my partner, and the rest of the community around. Because as we've seen, that person, you've seen videos well enough to know, there's some people that are like, well, you know what? Today's the day that I'm going to freaking die by cop. So I'm going to get out the car and I'm going to start shooting. I don't give a shit if there's the grandma on the corner waiting for the bus, if there's, little Lily in the stroller walking with her mom, or Billy walking with his dad. I don't give a shit who I hit. So at the end of the day, right, it's about processing and assessing information. Now, just because my gun is drawn, right, to the naked eye, right, to you or to anybody else that's not in the situation, oh my God, look at the cops being so aggressive. Look at them, picking on whoever's in the car. He's just a young man driving. What are you doing? But it's like, you don't know what's going on, right? So again, I say that correlates to the 2-minute video. People see 2 minutes of a video, and I've done it before. I'd be like, damn, be proud of being a cop. But I'm like, hey, let's wait till the rest of the video comes out, and let's wait till the rest of the information comes out to then pass judgment, to then make a statement, right? So back to that example I gave you of the car, we pull this person out. The person does wind up having a gun, and we don't pull them over for no reason. They ate a red light. They ran through a stop sign. The plate's coming back fake. So we're well within our rights to pull you over and investigate, right? And you get people that follow the rules, right? That they know they're not hiding anything, that it could be a glitch in the system. Hey, sir, windows down, roll the windows down, turn the lights on, turn the car off, put the keys on the hood, right? Can't go take the fob out of the, put it on the hood, right? And do me a favor, keep your hands on the dash, right? Because I want to give myself and my partner every opportunity to see in the car before we approach, especially at night. You get cars with tinted windows. I don't know if there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people in there. If one of them have a gun, if all 4 of them have a gun, or if nobody has a gun, right? But if you just follow directions, do what we say, things become much more easier, especially for myself. Again, I'm not looking to hurt nobody. I'm not trying to use my power to abuse, right? But if I see something I have to investigate, I'm going to go investigate, right? And I'm letting you know that during the course of this car stop, or during the course of the police showing up to your house, we're running the show. And that's in a respectful manner. I can't just leave, right? So it's like, I know myself, my partner, and the men and sisters that I work with, we want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, right? And we want the best opportunity for everyone to be safe. But unfortunately, sometimes people choose a different option, right? And I know people say, oh, well, why can't you just shoot him in the leg? Or if you have to shoot him in the arm. But that's not how we're trained, right? I'll ask you a question because you're a pretty smart guy. If I ask you what's the biggest section of your body, what would you say? Is it safe to say that it's from your chest to your torso?
That's what I was going to say.
Chest to torso, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would it be safe to say, we talked about heightened senses, right? And breathing heavy when you're running or chasing someone, or somebody with a knife is coming at you, right? As a police officer. Now you're a pretty smart guy. Would it be safe to say you're going to shoot him in the arm? Now you're 20 feet away. It's 11 o'clock at night. The street is fairly lit, and you're 20 feet away. We all know how, quote unquote, far 20 feet is, right? Would you feel comfortable shooting them in the arm? Or if you have to shoot, would you feel comfortable shooting them in a large mass area where you know that you're more likely to succeed at hitting if you have to?
The latter, what you said.
Correct, right?
Mhm.
And just to throw it out there for there's no misconceptions, I don't want to. We don't want to shoot nobody. But if it's life or death, and we have to, after we gave multiple verbal commands and multiple, we don't shoot to kill. We shoot to stop the threat, to neutralize the threat, right? And to give yourself the opportunity to keep yourself safe, to keep that person safe, and the rest of the bystanders around safe, right? Because you got to remember, as a police officer, when you fire your weapon, if you have to, you're responsible for every round that comes out of that weapon. So if it's 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, right? If 2 of those rounds out of the 3 hit the intended, a threat at the moment, but 1 round skips or misses and hits little Jimmy because you was going for the arm and hits little Jimmy or little Brenda or little Johnny in the stroller, you're responsible for that. And somebody's got to pay for that, right? God forbid that person passes away, right? They're going to come after the department for sure, which they should, right? And then after yourself, after you, or whatever it may be. But I'm getting at that you're responsible for every round that comes out of that weapon if you have to fire. And that's the most important thing is you want to shoot. If you have to, again, if it's your last resort, as fast and as accurate as possible. Not as fast as you can, as accurate as you can shoot, right? Everyone has a different level of training. Some shoot more than others, right? Some keep their training up more than others. So some can accurately hit at different distances and things like that. But again, we're not intended to try to kill nobody. We're just trying to stop the threat from being a threat, right? And I know people say, well, how come you have to shoot 17 times? And if you shoot and me and you are cops and we come upon a situation where we have to draw weapons and we gave verbal commands and this person's not stopping, they're continuing to proceed forward with the knife, or they have a weapon in their hand and you tell them to drop it multiple times, I'll ask you, how many times is enough? Right? How many times is enough? 1, 2, 4, 15? At the end of the day, there's a line draw where we're giving this person, and I'm not saying necessarily myself, because thank God I've had to draw my weapon a couple times, but thank God I've never had to, take nobody's life or shoot at anyone to stop any threats. Again, because that's not what I look forward to doing. I want to help people, not hurt people. But at the end of the day, there is a line drawn, right? There's a unimaginable line where it's like, hey, we've tried every verbal command, every tactic, every, soft skill that you could possibly have. At the end of the day, like, there comes a line where it's like, hey man, like, you have to drop the weapon, please. We don't want to hurt you, so on and so forth. And if that person, male or female, continue to proceed forward, right, with a weapon, meaning a deadly weapon, right, a gun or something like that, there's a certain time frame. It's like, hey, if you don't drop the weapon, you're going to get shot, right? We've been here for 10 minutes now, you and I. I'm not saying that there's a time frame, but there's an internal clock in yourself where it's like, hey, I'm not getting through to this person, right? If this person continues to proceed forward, there might be a chance where, we have to, fire a round or two, whatever it may be, to stop the threat. But the men and women of the New York City Police Department, I can tell you, because I work side by side for the majority, we don't intend to hurt people. We don't intend to, kill people or things like that. We try to go out there and protect the community and keep people safe. And it's sad that you see videos, and some of those videos are accurate, and it's unfortunate, that some people abuse their power. Some men and women of the department, not necessarily my department, but all departments, they're just a bad apple in one way or another, for whatever lack of a better word. They let power get to them, or whatever it may be, but they abuse that power. And those that do, they deserve whatever punishment may come to them, because I'm a big believer, if you do the crime, then you should do the time. But for the most part, there are a lot of great men and women that are doing a lot of great work, not just in the New York City Police Department, but across the country. It takes a very special person when someone says, help, my baby's choking, or this building's on fire, or this person wants to jump off a bridge, right? I'll give you New York City example. The bridges are really high from the where the traffic is just to the water is about 100 feet. But when you get people that start climbing up, they want to take their own life because they're dealing with the mental episode, or they might be having a problem, or you get a call, hey, there's a man with a gun in the playground. It takes a very special individual, right? It's safe to say that most people, when they hear gunfire or when there's chaos and violence, people run the opposite way of the violence, right? So the men and women, not just of the New York City Police Department, but of all sisters and brothers in blue, it takes a special individual to when there's something chaotic going on or gunfire or problems, you're running to the problem, not away from it, right? And I think that there's a lot of men and women in the department that do just that. They do good work. They're good-hearted people. They work hard. They want to keep the community safe. But it's unfortunate that a lot of videos and a lot of trends that we see overshadow that. You know what I mean? Again, it's really tough, right? When, if there was a fire in the building, most people are going to get out, right? If there was a fire in this location, right, this undisclosed location, right, everybody in this building is probably going to run out of the building because they want to be safe, right? But when you have someone that's like, oh my God, my child or my children are in there, if a police officer is first on scene, even though they're not trained in fire, 9 out of 10 times they're going to run in and try to save that child, not because they want to be a hero, but because that's what they were called to do, right? Just like firefighters, right? They get paid to put out fires. I'm not a firefighter, but if I get called, upon a scene where there's something going on, or there's a child left in the building or in the first floor, whatever it may be, I'm going to go in and try to help and get that child out, right? Because I know that if I was a civilian, when I'm in plain clothes, right, and I'm out of the building, and if my child was in there and I wasn't around, I would want someone to go in there and save my child, wouldn't you? Whether you have children, dogs, nieces, nephews, you would want some, or whether that was your mom or grandmother or grandfather in there, right? I would want the person to try to do something to save my family. So I always look at it like that. That I if I'm there, I'm gonna do whatever I can to the best of my ability, to help. I know it sounds cliche, but it's the truth. It takes a special individual to run towards the problem instead of away from it.
Yeah, and in most people in most emergency situations, who's the first person they're calling? It's
Right.
It's going to be you.
It's funny that you mentioned that because we have this thing, in the inner workings, inner circles. Everybody hates the cops until you need them, right? And it's so funny because I always I always joke around with my mom with this. I said, man, I should have been a firefighter. Everybody loves firefighters, right? Hey, honk the horn. Can I run up the ladder? Right? You see them, in the firehouses, and we got a great rapport with the fire guys that are next, attached to our precinct. But they show up in the grocery store. They take up 15 parking spots with their big truck, and everyone loves them, right? And rightfully so, because it takes a special individual to want to fight fires every day. But I always say no one loves the police, right? Because unfortunately, as a police officer, we get a bad rep, and when you show up at someone's house and they open that door, even though whether it's them that called or a neighbor that called, once they see they don't even see the individual. They just see the uniform and they automatically assume that you're just like every other cop, and I've had situations like that. But again, I think that's where the experience and the being able to be level-headed and talk with people and come down to their level, right? Because you open the door, you call 911, whether you were fighting with your wife, or most people, they're fighting with their husband or their children, you're angry. And then on top of that, the cops show up, you're even more angry because you're like, mother effer, who called the police, whether it was the person or a neighbor. No one likes the cop. So to be able to assess the situation, and again, when they open the door and they see someone, whether it's an African-American or someone of color, Spanish, African-American, and they see someone like yourself or another person that may be a Caucasian male that, is not from this area, that probably lives in Long Island or upstate. And, they got the bowl cut, right? And their uniform is nice and sharp, and they got blue eyes or green eyes, right? It kind of sets them back because they're not looking at someone that's like them, right? And I say that in a respectful manner, because they can't I deal with them. They can't, understand each other, if that makes sense to a
Yeah.
degree, right? But sometimes when they open the door and they see someone like yourself, again, they're not angry at you and yelling at you. They're yelling at the uniform. So I always take that consideration. Nothing's personal, and I always, for one way or another, God gave me the ability to communicate with people, and sometimes I have to use an aggressive tone, and let people know, I mean business, and I'm here to figure the situation out. And sometimes I could use, my charm and my wit and my, my other communication skills to say, hey, you could yell all you want. That's not going to get nothing done, right? Whether you called or the neighbors called, we're here now. So tone it the hell down and allow me, not the uniform. Forget about this uniform, okay? Allow me to help you figure out what's going on, right? There's a lot of things at play, right? Your children are here. You're arguing with your husband, right? That's a domestic violence situation. Now, whether there's punches thrown or not, I got to call ACS, right? They're going to come and take your children. Both of you guys are going to jail if you guys both fought or whatever it may be, right? It's Friday night. Do you really want to go to jail, right? Do you really want to go to jail? No. Over him, right? And I know that, again, there's no textbook on what to say and how to say it, right? Sometimes I've said things on camera where I've dropped curse words and things like that. That's not really, you're not supposed to. But at the end of the day, I can give a shit about policy to a degree. As long as I don't break policy, or do anything illegal, if I can help someone in time of need and I dropped a couple F bombs or I dropped whatever it may be, or I'm leveling with them and I'm de escalating the situation, then even though it's not by textbook definition, right? Because a lot of these bosses that, if we have time, we can get to, a lot of these bosses are so far removed from the streets that you forget that, hey, once upon a time, you worked in the streets. You should know that not everything is cookie cutter, right? So if I drop a couple F bombs, if I say the N word, which we say, in terms of endearment where I'm from, but if that's what it takes to bring that person from 1,000 down to 5, and then I can relate to them, and, whether it's because they're Spanish, I'm Spanish, or most people think I'm black and they may be black, or whatever it may be, if I can get them down to hear me and listen and we can figure it out, because a lot of times it's just paperwork you got to do, separating, so on and so forth, then you know what? I've done my job. I may have not done it how you liked it or how you wanted it done, but by terms of definition, I de-escalated myself and my partner. We've de-escalated a situation because we were able to get through to them by leveling with them and making them see you as one of them, not as a cop, right? Because I tell people all the time, man, don't get the uniform, don't get it mixed up, man. This comes off at the end of the night, right? When I'm done with my shift, this usually either goes in my laundry bag or it gets hung up, and I'll come in and I put it back on, and the next day and do it again. But this comes off at night. When this armor comes off, I'm a human being just like you, man. I grew up just where you grew up, maybe not in the same area, in a different area, just like this, all too familiar. I can close my eyes and smell the piss in the elevator and see the crack, see the dirty stairs and see the crackheads in the staircase. And, you know, maybe I didn't grow up in this area, but I grew up in an area just like this. So take a second, take a breath, relax, and allow me to help you. I'm not other cops that may have came. Maybe they don't give a shit, but I give a shit. So allow me to help you. And again, I'm just paraphrasing, but a lot of the times that gets through to people. For the majority, sometimes there's people that they're just so far gone that you can't help, in the sense of like, all right, cool, well, we have to do what we have to do. People are getting arrested. It is what it is. But I never like coming into a situation at 100. I always come in at 50. And then from there, if I have to take it to 100 and you got to get arrested and you got to go to the slammer, hey, it's nothing personal, man. Sorry. But if I can bring you down and we can figure it out and it's not an arrestable thing and it's just paperwork, then let's do that, right? Because it's a shit ton of paperwork for me to do, right? And it's a shitty situation for you to be in. You got to sit in a cell with a bunch of other people, hungry, tired, sleepy, angry, right? And I have to do a bunch of paperwork, so on and so forth. So if we can combat that and navigate that, and you can tone it the hell down and allow me to, again, back to what we were saying, people talk more than listen. If you could just allow me to listen to what your problem is, then you be quiet and listen and allow me to assess the situation and help you out, then it's a win-win for everybody, right? And again, people are not mad at the cop, they're mad at the uniform. Because you don't know me as an individual and as a person. You just see another 6'2", 250 pound, you know, most people think I'm black or Filipino or Chinese or whatever. You just see this large individual with a uniform and a badge and a gun and a pepper spray and so on and so forth and a radio standing in your front door at 9 o'clock at night or at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever it may be. And you're pissed off from the situation and you're looking for someone to take it out on. Right. And so a lot of the times, again, if you could just communicate, and it goes back to keeping that level head, processing information, definitely don't take nothing personal. I've gotten called every name in the book you could possibly think of, and I laugh because we call it not getting hooked. So if you don't allow them and you allow your personal emotions to get into it, you keep a level head, you understand what's going on, you listen to what's going on, you listen to them, and then vice versa, allow them to listen to you and use your de-escalation skills. For the most of the part, you can get the job done without having to either put people in cuffs or, you can get, that message across. I'll give you a perfect example. I came up on a job that my buddy, we came out of the academy with, he was working one area, I was working another, not too far away. He's an African-American male. I don't want to butcher it. I think he's Haitian, or I can't remember exactly where he's from, but he came upon a young African-American girl who was probably about 14, 13 maybe. She was crying and upset and mad because, her mother, she said her mother beats her and all these other things, which turned out to be a lie. But you know how kids are, right? But when the mom came, which is rightfully understandable, the mom lives in a low-income neighborhood. She's probably has, she had multiple kids, I think 3 or 4. That girl was the youngest. She just came off work, right? She's tired. She's, hungry. She hasn't had her cigarette. The area that she lives in is a shithole, right? So it's like she's got all these things working against her. She just wants to go upstairs and take a shower and probably relax, try to relax at least. Now she's got to come to the front of her building when she gets off the work, off the bus, see her kid there. The cops are there. She's like, from already being tired, right? You work, you come home tired, you come home hungry. You're like, I can't wait to get home to, have a beer or a soda or whatever your vice is, and have some food, take a shower, and just relax. Now you come home, there's cops in front of your door. You have a child that's saying, they're like, oh, your 13-year-old son is saying that, da-da-da. You're going to be angry. And she was, livid, right? And now, again, she's talking to another African-American male cop that looks just like her, right? Same demographic, so on and so forth. And she is just screaming at the top of her lungs, like probably where your water is to where he is. I know he can feel the spit coming off her mouth. And where I'm getting at is when I showed up, I understood what transpired. I found out, what happened, myself and my partner. I found out what happened, right? And I could just see he's talking to her and he's like standing there and she's just going off, dude. Like, I think people maybe 2 blocks away could hear her scream. That's how loud she was livid. And again, which is understandable, right, to the situation. And I told my partner, or I told my buddy, I said, hey, bro, I got it. Let me chop it up with her, right? And she started going off on me, right? But again, it goes to my point that having that communication skills to just listen, what's going on, right? I'm hearing her yelling, right? And she's saying all these things. And it's like, well, okay, you're not really yelling at me. You're just yelling because you're angry. Cool. And I said, sweetheart, I get it. You're effing pissed off. I'm pissed off that I have to be here right now. I want to be home, sitting in my shorts, drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper. Please, nobody kill me, Diet Dr. Pepper. Trying to watch my figure. Drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper, watching my favorite show. But no, I'm here right now in my uniform at work, in not a nice area, here trying to help you. So do me a favor, tone it the hell down, right? You smoke? Yep, cool. I had cigarettes or whatever because we keep certain things on us sometimes when we arrest people. Again, you got to keep like little goodies, that, sometimes they're mad, they're upset, whatever. You give them a little vice, their cigarettes, whatever. Hey, cool down. They calm down, You smoke? Yeah. Newport's 100? Perfect. Look what I have. In my left pocket of my cargo pants, I had like 13 cigarettes left or whatever it was. Would you like one? Can I light it for you? If I light it for you, will you not make me go deaf? She chuckled a little bit. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. She took that first hit, and then from 1,000, she went down to about 10. And then it was like, I'm sorry, I just came off of work and da-da-da-da-da. I'm stressed out, da-da-da, this, that, and the third. My daughter's, you know what I mean? Just off the one hit. So it's like, again, be quiet, listen, assess, see what she's really angry about, right? Pay attention to the verbal and nonverbal cues that the body's giving you, because some people are good at communicating and some people are not. My buddy is decent, but sometimes it takes a different person to get through, right? And so I was fortunate enough to come in, step in, have her tone it the hell down. I got her a cigarette and I got her a Coca-Cola. Normally, you're not supposed to buy people stuff from the store, but I don't give a shit. If that's gonna help $3 for a freaking whatever liter of Coca, whatever it was, a bottle of Coca-Cola the size of this, not a big deal. I'll make the $3 back, I'm sure, but if that's what it takes to tone that lady down, to help figure out what's going on and get the job done, no harm, no foul, man. It's just a cigarette and it's a soda. And again, in my textbook definition, I've done my job. Right. And it wasn't even my job. I was just there backing up someone else. But unfortunately, I wanted to step in because I could see that conversation wasn't going nowhere and it was just escalating. And again, as police officers, we don't want to escalate the situation. We want to de-escalate the situation. And some do it better than others, and some just don't know how to de-escalate. But I was able to step in, give her a cigarette. I got her a soda. She calmed the heck down. And, we was able to, my partner and my other buddy and his partner, were able to handle it from there and finish the situation and take care of it, paperwork and so on and so forth. But it's a great example of, I tell you that it's really, the job is really about communicating, right? It's really about communication.
I was gonna say, this is like a master class.
I don't know about a master class.
It's fascinating. It's human behavior. It's human psychology, human nature. No, it's just fascinating. Like it goes back to the street smarts thing. You can read every book, plan out all you want, but nothing can prepare you to be able to have, or nothing can replicate that experience.
For sure.
Where you can recognize situations. Oh, okay, I know.
And I'm decently book smart. I did pretty good in the academy. I had a decent average, but I think at the end of the day, for me, I would take the experience on the street all day, because again, it's the ground floor. It's the heartbeat of police work, right? At least in New York City. I can't speak for other, cities and states, because every dynamic is different. A lot of people, I know in California they're not walking nowhere. In California they got cars, but because of the demographic and the way it's set up, it's all spread out and things like that. But in New York City, it's really unique, and the heartbeat of police work is definitely, besides the investigations and the detectives and the cool specialized units and the cool gadgets, right? The foundation is patrol. If you can, I don't want to say master, but if you can, learn patrol, right? You're answering jobs, whether it's a DOA, which is dead body, or child abuse, or a robbery case, or a murder, or a man with a gun, domestic violence. You go into those calls over the course of, most people spend 2-3 years on patrol before they put in for specialized units. But if you can handle a lot of those calls and get that exposure, and I remember my first call, and I was not deer in the headlights, but I was like, whoa, your first call, again, the experience nothing prepares you, even though I have all the experience. For me, it was still like, things were like flying. Like we get there, people screaming, this going on, that's going on. Sirens are going off, car alarms are going off. This person's telling you their problem, and you're like, wait, what? You want me to? Okay, I'm gonna get this from this person. And it's just things you don't think about. Hey, make sure you grab this person's ID. Make sure you take a picture of that. Make sure you grab this backpack. Make sure you make notifications to the sergeant, whatever it may be, or call for a medical, a bus because this person's been hurt and whatever. And don't forget to do the aided report. So it's like there's so much going on that you can't replicate that, right? And the more over the course of time you get a chance to handle those calls, whether it's a DOA, right, a car crash, a car stops, you start to get into a flow and an understanding on how to do police work and find your footing, right? Everybody does things differently, right? If there's 10 people in this room and you give them the same information, 10 people are going to perceive that information differently. 10 people have their own way of doing police work. Everyone does the same job, but everyone has their own way. Sometimes this person does the paperwork here, they put this there, they like this a certain way. Everyone's got their belt and kit set up a certain way that's comfortable for them, right? And so being on patrol is kind of like that. If you can handle multiple calls and learn, it's a very fast pace. The difference between training, when you're in training, and when you're on patrol is training, things are more geared down. You have a person over you. They're helping you. They're guiding you, teaching you certain things. For the most part, this is how you do this paperwork. This is how you do that. You're kind of like it's like a crawl, walk, run method, right? The crawl, walk, run until you graduate, and then you get the blessing and you spread your wings and you get to go on to patrol with your partner, whoever that may be. But then when you get to patrol, you realize, okay, cool. The training wheels are off now. Things are a lot faster. Hey, you're Sector David, which just means sector means you patrol this square mile for however many blocks. Depending on your precinct, there may be a Sector Adam, a Sector Boy, a Sector Charlie, and a Sector David. Those are just letters, that signify a specific area that you're assigned for that day or multitude of days to patrol, right? Some are larger than others. So if you can be a certain sector and handle your sector well and handle calls and get exposure to different calls, it just makes you a more well-rounded cop in time, right? Because if you've never handled a dead body before, when you first go on to handle it, you're going to be like, whoa, I got to make this notification. I got to do this. It's happening, right? Families are coming, they're crying, and you're trying to talk to neighbors, and you got to call even though you have a partner and they split the work, but still you got to call the sergeant. Hey, did you call the sergeant? Hey, did you write that? Did you get this? Did you make that notification? Right? Did you notify the detectives? Cause they got to come and see if so there's so much going on, but you never handled it before. You're learning as you're going, right? Now, fast forward, unfortunately, you may have done 10 or 12, DOAs, right? By your 10th one, 12th one, you're going to have a system. You're going to have a routine that works for you. You're going to come on board. It's not going to be, unfortunately, we get desensitized. So it's not going to be like, oh, wow. Like, you know what I mean? You have your routine in the system and you're like, okay, I've been here before. I've done this. Okay, partner, you do da 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 da. I'm going to do da 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 da. And a job that may take, that DOA that may take 13 hours for a rookie or someone who's never done it. You guys are doing it in, whether 3 hours or something like that, whatever, because you still have to wait for certain people to come that are out of your control, but you have a system down, right? Same thing with any other call, whether it's a robbery, armed robbery, or you find a gun or car stops. As the times go on, you do these things multiple times. I don't say the word routine because there's never a routine day, never a routine day on patrol. Like I told you, one day could be all good. You get to go home. And then your next day it could be before you even get in your car, the radio is going off. Shots fired over here, car crash over here. We got an armed chase over, man with the gun in the bank, whatever it may be. And you're just like, you're going from 0 to 100. And you're like, holy shit. Like I just got here. I didn't even get a chance to stop by the bodega to get my cup of coffee, to hit the road. You know what I mean? So, but as time goes on, you learn. And I think, again, back to our thing, the heartbeat is the foundation is patrol. If you can do patrol well, then it sets the tone for everything else. If you become a boss, which is your sergeant, right, which is above, regular cops, you're a boss, so to speak. How can you be a good boss if you've never was a good patrol cop, right? And there's instances in that. You get some people that are not really street smart. They don't really know how to communicate, but they're super book smart. They got 99s on all their tests, 98s, and they go to patrol, and some of them are dumb as a bucket of rocks when it comes to communication or learning how to handle a situation or tactics or whatever it may be. And they'll go hide, but they're really good at paperwork. So they'll go hide for 3 years, right? And, hiding meaning they'll, hide behind certain, administrative duties and things like that. And then they'll take a test, an exam to promote to sergeant. But they'd never really done nothing in the street. Never been hands-on with someone, never had to do an effective car stop, pull somebody out of the car, right? Go hands-on, because sometimes you have to. Sometimes talking works, and sometimes people want to fight. And unfortunately, I don't care if you're 6'2", 290 pounds, or 5'1", 110 pounds. If you don't want to go to jail, it doesn't matter your size, weight. Whether if you're the cop and you're 6'2" or 6'5", and that person's 5'9", 6'1", 109 pounds, it's not going to look pretty, is what I'm getting at. And so if you never dealt with those situations, you got people that never really had to do that. Now they go become a sergeant. It's like, now you're a boss telling people what to do. How can I trust you to do, you know? How can I trust you to tell me what the right thing is to do if I'm calling for guidance or whatever it may be? Hey, Sarge, I got up. I just want to let you know, when you're like, okay. You know what I'm trying to say? So you have instances of that as well, you know?
Well, yeah, and if they're getting mad at you, oh, you're supposed to do it this
Yeah.
way, when they've never, like, dude,
It's like,
you've never
dude,
done this.
Yeah, you hid
before.
under a desk and did paperwork for 3 years, and now you're a sergeant and a boss because you're really good at taking tests. Like, and you're telling me what to, like, go sit down somewhere and eat a popsicle. You know what I mean? But the best, again, it goes back to our point, the best bosses, for the most part, because there are some that let, you know, the stripes and things get to their head, and, you know, they were nice and then they become assholes. For the most part, if you can do patrol well, right? They've been in the streets, they've answered multitude of calls, they've been to, you know, they've gone hands-on, unfortunately, when they had to, they've done car stops, they've been to DOAs, they've been to domestic violence calls, they've been to car chases, you know, they've been to suicidal things and things like that. They've done those things, right? So they've been in those situations. Now they'll go on to become a boss. When that patrol cop who may have 6 months on or 2 years on may have a question, because, you know, most of the time you have to call sergeants. If you have a really good rapport with the sergeant, hey, Sarge, what's up, Frank? What do you got? Oh, I got da da da. And they know that you're a hard worker and you have smarts and you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. For the most part, they'll be like, yeah, no problem, just sign off on it. Like, meaning they're blessing that, bring the guy in or bring the person in, I'll sign everything when we get here. I'm taking your word for it. I trust you, you know? But they also know because they've been in that situation before, right? So a good sergeant, a good boss, a good lieutenant is usually, it usually stems from them really being, we call a cop's cop, meaning they get it, they understand it because they've been on the mud floor on the ground doing all the hard work, you know? So, yeah.
That's interesting. Eric, did you have anything? Because I know we want to get to staffing and
Sure,
all
let's
that
do it.
stuff here.
Speaking of the office work, have you ever had a desk pop?
A what?
From the movie The Other Guys?
Guys.
What is
Yeah,
it?
several now. I'm just kidding. Desk Pop is I don't know if you've ever seen The Other Guys with Mark Wahlberg and what's his name?
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell.
I know of it. I have
Will
not seen it.
Ferrell's like it's a perfect example of, he was book smart, right? He got into the department, but he's not really street smart. And these guys play a prank on him. I'm like, hey, have you ever done a desk pop? And he's like, no, I would never do that with my real gun. Meaning, you're in the office, you take your weapon out and you fire it up in the air, right? And so
Oh,
most of the guys like, yeah, I did one last week. Or he's like, oh, really cool, douche. And he lets one off, and then, you know, then he gets on like restrictive duty, and they give him like a wooden fake gun to carry around because he's unreliable. But no, I've never had a desk pop, thank God.
No, man, and it's such a shame you have to like explain like your humanity and stuff as a cop, because like it should be common sense that everyone knows, but yeah, like it's such a shame, like with the stigma and like misconceptions going on. It's like at the end of the day, you guys are just other human beings.
For sure. And to a degree, you know, again, you know, from the outside looking in, because I wasn't always a cop, right? I was a civilian, just like a lot of we are, right? I used to think the same things when I was younger and a little more naive, right? And also because of my surroundings, right? A lot of the times, unfortunately, you would see Caucasian cops coming into these low-income neighborhoods, taking down these, you know, these minorities, right? And from the perception is, God, like, leave this kid alone, blah, 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 blah. You know, and sometimes that is the case, right? Person's at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they should get caught up. And a lot of the other times is that person that you thought you knew, that, you know, you might have played sports with or went to school with, that you've been in their house, their moms cook meals for you, and you're playing Xbox or PlayStation with them, right? Unfortunately, as we grow, some people take different paths, and that person or people might have taken different paths, and they got caught up in some things that you weren't privy to. And that's why the cops are coming, right? Whether it's for information to get to the bigger things, or they're in some stuff that they should have not been into. That gets overlooked, right? And as I got older, I've been had the ability to and fortunate to be on looking at the side that we just spoke about, and now being on the other side of it and understanding both dynamics. And like I said, I won't make excuses. There are some bad apples all over the country, right? I mean, it's no shy. You can Google New York City Police Department. I'm sure that there'll be some scandals that have come up, within last year and things like that. Besides the staffing crisis and all the things that happen, it's no shy. Things happen, but that doesn't overshadow the work that a lot of the men and women are doing. Not alone just in the New York City Police Department, but all the men and women and brothers and sisters of blue across the nation, as far as being, a police officer. It doesn't matter where you're a police officer at. Obviously, certain dynamics and things change that, right? If you're a police officer in Compton versus a police officer in, Grand Chute, Wisconsin, crime happens everywhere. But the level of crime and the consistency of crime and criminality and the things that happen might be a little different on a day-to-day, right? Safe to say that if you work in Compton, you're probably a really seasoned veteran cop, because unfortunately I don't want to say bad area, because I say there's good people that live there. There's just bad things that happen. And those bad things overshadow and make it a bad area, make it quote unquote a bad area. But it's not the people that live, not the good people that live there. It's the some of the bad people that come in and make it a bad area. But that cop might be more seasoned than a person that works in Idaho, that may deal with crime, but just not the same level and type of crime that they deal with. Over here, you might deal with a lot of gun shootings and carjackings and violence. And over there, it might be, thefts from Rite Aid, or, people breaking into people's house. So criminality happens everywhere. Just the level of what happens and how it happens, it's just different, just because of the dynamics across the country. But nonetheless, it's still hard to be a cop nowadays, especially with social media and things happening.
Well, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I think you mentioned it, the staffing.
So
what's going on with that?
That's a great question. And I think I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers or whatever the case may be. But the truth of the matter is that New York City, right, NYPD is one of, if not the largest department in the country. But I think the pay is not up to par with a lot of the rest of the country. And let me just set this straight for the record. Nobody that I know becomes a police officer for the money. That's for dang sure, right? When I worked in the private sector, I was making really, really, really good money. Upwards to, could be 10, 12, 14K a month, right? So when you go to the, police department, specifically the New York City Police Department, take an opportunity and, they're making, just starting, right? Because there's a scale. But even at the top pay, which is I think 130 with no overtime, most people are like, oh, it's 130. Yeah, but you live in New York. You work in New York City. Even though you may not live in New York City, you work in New York, right? Taxes are ridiculously high. And, people who come out of the academy, they're making, I think, 66,000 now. But the poverty line is like you have to make 80,000 just to survive in New York City. And that's at the line. So I think that plays a big role. And again, please understand that a lot of the men and women that I know, they didn't take the job for the money, right? It's usually they have a purpose to serve. They want to serve at the highest level they could possibly serve their community. In addition to that, they have family members that were on the job. They're more like legacies, their father, their grandfather, their, mom, their aunts, uncles, cousins. They come from a law enforcement family, a lot of these people that I know. And so it's more of they grew up in it. That's what they know. They have that calling and yearning and service, and service to want to serve at a higher level and serve that community. And that's what they do. I don't know. One person's like, yeah, I took the job because I wanted to make 66,000, a year. And then in 5 years, make 130,000. But I think to get to your point, what's happening is you see this shift right across the country, and I'm sure you've probably seen it on social media or, you know, not really necessarily commercials, but more so social media advertisement. Hey, come on down, come work for Santa Monica PD as a lateral. You know, you got to have 1 year on the job and you could be making 99,000 a year. Well, anybody with a no-brainer, right? That's like, okay, I'm going to complete my first year here and I'm going to make 67,000 a year with no overtime. Or I can do my 1 year here and then lateral, meaning you can transfer over as a person, not a new recruit who has to go to the academy. You can come over with 1 year on the job, and not necessarily Santa Monica. I'm just saying in general, most places you go to come over to another department as what we call a transfer lateral. You got to have usually 1 year. Sometimes they want 2, whatever. But when you look at the pay scale and you tell someone, hey, you can come over here with 1 year on the job of experience and make 99,000 versus you have 1 year on the job and you're going to make 67 or 68. You know, I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but that's like a 10, 20, like 30, almost $40,000 difference. Some people, they have families to provide for. You know, when you do the math, 66,000 a year, 67, 68,000, whatever it is, you divide that by 12, divide that by every 2 weeks, bro, that's like a $1,700 check. Where the hell are you going to live in the 5 boroughs for $1,700? And you got 2 kids and a wife. And let's not factor in medical insurance. That comes out of your check. You want to put money away for your pension, right? For your kids in college and things like that. So when you, and then taxes, you pay federal, state, a New York tax, whatever the hell that is, right? I still don't know what that is. And I lived in New York my whole entire life and, pay taxes there as well. But now that check that's $1,700 every 2 weeks, taxes and pension and 401k and insurance, for you, your children, your wife, if your wife doesn't work or maybe she does work, whatever, that's like a $1,300 check, $1,100 check. Rent, food, if you live far, gas, So it's like the staffing crisis, I think, is not just about the money, though I think the money plays a big role, but I also think it's work-life balance. And I say that to say, again, none of this is confidential. If you Google it, I'm sure you've probably Googled it. Work-life balance. You got people that are in specialized units, detectives that do intelligence work and their job is to investigate crimes that are being pulled from their units to serve in a patrol capacity, in a car, in your uniform, right? Detectives usually wear whatever the uniform is, slacks and this and a different vest and their cute little shirts and stuff, whatever, But hey, we got to pull you because we're so understaffed that we're pulling people from different units because we have so many units to fulfill a patrol capacity. And let that sit in for a second. You're asking people to stop their investigations on what they do to come fill patrol, right? Because again, patrol's the backbone of the police, right? People call 911, which is an operator. The operator gives it to Central. Central is a person that we call dispatch. So they get the information and then they disperse it to the police, to the cops, right? There's not enough cops to patrol that given area that their precinct covers because people are leaving at a rapid rate. People that are 12 years on the job that are like, you know what? F this, dude. I haven't seen my wife in a week. I've seen my kids once this whole week. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep. And I know some people are going to be like, shut up, stop bitching, stop crying. That's what you signed up for. Yeah, I signed up to fight crime and help people, help the community and all that. But there is a such thing as work-life balance, right? And at the end of the day, some people in the department feel like they're just an orange or a lemon and the department is squeezing the shit and get as much, right? What do you do with orange? You squeeze it into a cup or a thing and try to get as much juice out of it as you can. And then when you're done, what happens?
You throw it away and you get another orange.
There you go. You see that? Right? 2 + 2 is 4.
Yeah.
Right? And so I say that to say that the work-life balance is I think plays a more bigger role than the money. Obviously, we all gotta make money to survive, but that the work-life balance is a big thing. People that are running on 2 hours of sleep, working 18, 19-hour days. Sure, I get it. That's what we signed up for. But at the end of the day, we also, signed up it also is work-life balance, right? So when you got people that are running on 2, 3 hours of sleep, they can't, they're drained, they're tired. How can they be as effective? And the reason why they're drained and tired is because we can't keep enough staff to fulfill the positions we need to fulfill so that the patrol guys that are on patrol could do their patrol stuff, and these detectives and these lieutenants and these sergeants and these people in specialized units can do what they are assigned to do, investigate whatever they're investigating. They got to stop that, which puts that on hold, right? Crimes being solved and things of that nature to come fulfill this capacity, because we can't keep people in those seats. And I think a lot of it, again, it's the work-life balance and it's the money, right? It's why would I want to stay here? And I can't speak for everyone, but there was a case where I saw on Instagram not too long ago, probably about a week and a half ago, a detective with 12 years on the job. I don't know where he worked. I think in Manhattan. 12 years on the job. Most people, when they leave, they usually leave like 3 or 4 years on, or 2 years on, because they're like, you know what? If I'm gonna make a change, I'm gonna make it now. 12 years, you're usually like, hey, 12. I got 8 more to go. Put my 20 in, and I'm good, dude. I'll retire and go sail off in the sunset and eat fish and fish on a boat. You know what I mean? Smoke my cigars and drink my wine. But when you get guys that are 12 years on the job, it's fairly to say they're comfortable, they're settled in, they're in their specialized unit, whatever they're doing, to say, you know what, this is so bad that I'd rather leave and go to I think that individual he was a detective, I believe. He serves as a detective now, and I think he went to Florida. I don't know what department, but he went to a department in Florida, and they interviewed him. And he was just like, dude, the work-life balance. For one, I'm making way more money than I would be making here, right? Because, a lot of times departments match whatever you're making there. Usually they'll pay there. Or, hey, as a 12-year person here or 10-year person here, you can make this much, right? With incentives. And, that I think that detective went over, became a detective in that Florida, police department. Shout outs to him. And he's making way more money. But the number one thing he said was work-life balance. I'm able to see my kids. I'm able to see my wife. I'm able to have a life with them. I still get to go to work and do my job at the highest level and do what I love to do professionally. But in the police department in New York City, that was suffering because his personal home life was suffering because, again, the department was squeezing so much juice out of him because they couldn't keep enough butts in the seats. And again, I think that gets overlooked, right? I know that cops are cops, and we're not Superman and Superwoman, right? We need rest too. Even Superman goes to sleep. So does Batman, right? Even they sleep, and so does Robin and all the heroes and stuff like that people portray cops to be for the most part when they don't think they're villains. The people that look at cops as superheroes and thank them for their service, things like that, understand that, hey, they need rest too. They need to sleep too. Right? There's been cases where it's been, documented where people are working 15, 18 hours a day, 19 hours, 25-hour shifts because of protests and things like that. And then they got to go home and drive 2 hours home, an hour and 45 minutes, off 2 hours of sleep, and come right back in 4 hours and do it again. There's been cases where some people have crashed behind the wheel, and lost their life because I'm not going to blame it on the department, but, just because of the way that the trend is going with, not being able to keep enough butts in the seats, some people, it's costing them life because even though they wanted to do it, right? Sometimes you get voluntold to do it. You don't really have a choice. Like, hey, you've got hit for this overtime detail. It's not like we're asking you to do it. It's like, hey, you got to do this. You put in, and I've been there. I've worked 17-hour days, 18-hour days, right? Between protests or the crime stats are going up in certain areas. Hey, we need to beef up this area. Let's put this unit or these guys here. And you're like, fuck, man, you think you're going home at, midnight? Because I work a 4-by, which is 4 to 12, which is really 3 to 12, 3 to 8 p.m. to usually midnight. And then your shift is done. They do turnover. The midnight shift comes in and you go home. And then, it'd be 10 o'clock, 10:30, and you're getting a hit like, hey, man, we just got word from the CO that, which is the commanding officer of that precinct. We need extra guys to stay tonight, bro. And you got voluntold that you're going to fucking stay till 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like, bro, I've been up since I've been up since 4, or I've been up since whatever, 8 o'clock. Because you get up, you work out, right? Physical fitness is a big thing. You come into work, so you're already up since 8. Now you're staying up till working whatever shift you work, then to staying up till 4 in the morning. And then that next day, you might have got notification that you got to come in and do a special detail, barriers, or there's a protest, or they need extra beef. You're coming in at 10. Bro, I just got off at 4. So to get up at 10, to come in at 10, you got to be up at what? 6? Get your stuff ready, get prepared. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, my day starts, usually I work at 3 p.m., right? Roll calls at 3 where we stand in line and we get all the briefings and stuff like that and stat stuff of what's going on. But I'm up at like 6. 1, I just can't sleep like that, because my mind's always racing. And 2, I get up, I get my stuff ready, right? Whether it's lunch, meals, energy drinks, whatever I'm getting for the day, pack my bag, make sure I have everything. Because, where I live in New York, I live kind of far from where I work. Not kind of far, it's not far, but with New York City traffic, which is unpredictable like LA, to go 9 miles, it could take you 2 hours, which I've been there, done that. So I'm at the precinct by 1, maybe 12:30. So that's 3 hours before my shift, 2.5 hours. I get a workout in, I shower, I kind of mentally prepare myself for what I'm about to embark on that day, say my little prayer, and then I'm off to roll call. But my day started at 6. I'm thinking I'm going home at 12. So we always say you have a start time. You start at 3 p.m. That's roll call. You just never know when you're going to end. It could be my day 5. I'm like, oh man, I'm looking forward to my weekend. Could be my Friday, right? Because some people's Fridays is Monday, Tuesday. It could be Wednesday for them. And you just show up to a call. You get a call that's in your sector. You show up and it's like, dude, this guy's got to go to jail. It's your turn to collar. That's what we call arrest collars. And now I'm thinking I'm going home at midnight. Now I got to do the paperwork, fingerprints, process, voucher stuff, take this person down to bookings. That could take 5 hours. Now you're going home at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's part of the job. That's fine. But then, again, when you get hit that, oh, you got to stay late, or you made an arrest and they want you to take it, or whatever it may be, you're running on fumes. And you could only do that for so long, right? That adrenaline's pumping, you're new, right? 1 year in, 2 year in. But by your 3rd year, 2nd year, whatever it may be, you're tired, dude. And people are like, man, fuck this. I'm not going to risk I'm tired of doing this shit. I'm getting abused. And I know it sounds corny and it sounds like, shut up, dude, you're whining. It's not whining. It's just telling you the truth. The staffing crisis is because we can't keep enough people and people are going other places to take better opportunities to make more money. That's just the truth, right? Whatever your job title is, right? If you're overworked, feel like you're underpaid, right? And there's an opportunity, let's just say Arizona. Hey, you can go do the same job. This company is telling you, Sam, come up, not necessarily Sam, but you're looking, hey, I have the experience. I have everything that they're asking for. I got, it's asking for 1 year of experience. I got 5 or 3. Hey, Sam, come on over here, right? You can make $50,000 more than what you're making at your place. And on top of that, we're going to give you a $30,000 signing bonus.
Where do I sign?
Yeah. That's what most people would say. It sounds crazy. Look at Seattle, Washington. I spend time there with the United States Federal Reserve. I like it, but most people, for them it's fucking depressing. It's always raining. It's always wet and it's cold, right? And at one point, I know it was one place in the United States, the top place where it was the most suicide because it was so depressing there. They have an ad going on right now. Come on over to work in Seattle, with Seattle, Washington PD. We'll give you a $25,000 signing bonus. And I think they make like 80 grand, I think, or something like that. 75, 80 grand. But you're telling me I can make 70,000, the cost of living is cheap, and you're going to give me a $30,000 signing bonus? Where do I sign, bro? Where do I sign? And that detective that we talked about went to Florida. I think they gave him like a $25,000 signing bonus. And he's got better work-life balance, better weather, Crime is crime, but the work-life balance that allows him to balance that plays a big factor after a while. Again, Superman, Robin, Batman, they all need rest at some point.
Well, and as you're telling this, and this has been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
I know we could talk for 10 hours on this stuff. On top of everything you just said, I'm curious, just when people say defund the police, when they're saying, not only are you talking about the internal, what you guys go through, but now you have people on the external giving you mental obstacles and not making you feel good as well.
I'm sorry, but it's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life, right? The same people that are like defund the police are the same people that when someone puts a gun to their face and they're like, give me your fucking money, I'm gonna blow your brains out. Or when they rob their purse or wallet from them, or carjack their car. What's the 3 numbers you're gonna dial?
911.
Yeah, 911, right? And what most people don't realize, my hat's off and much respect to the men and women that serve in the military, right? They're the reason why we're able to sit here and have this conversation today as freely as we are, right? They defend and protect our rights for us to be able to have freedom, right? But what a fascinating thing, I don't know if you ever heard this or ever thought about this, right? Respect to the military, right? Safe to say they keep our borders and keep us safe so that we can have this conversation and we can be free. Now think about this for a second. The men and women, not just of the New York City Police Department, but of any police department and any organization across the country, just think about this. When a military person is deployed, usually they're deployed for 6 months, 365 days, sometimes a year, and then their deployment's over and they come home. Then they have a break. I'm not going to speak on all of it because I don't know, but from the people that I've talked to that are in the military, they do the deployment, whether it's 6, 9 months, sometimes a year and a half, then that's over and they come home for however long. And if they go to they sign up for another deployment, then that's what they do. That's their choice. The men and women, not just of the New York City Police Department, the men and women of police organizations across the country are deployed 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There is no good night, I'm going home. There is, right? I say goodnight to the next people, the midnight staff that are coming on to work the midnights. And then when they get off, the morning rotation comes in. And then my shift comes in, 4 bys, then the midnight, and then the morning. It's a constant rotation. Yeah, we have days off, 2 days off, if you're lucky. Because in the New York City Police Department, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but your days can be taken away. You're at the beck and call of the department. And I've had times, several months or 2, where I would get, instead of 2 days off, 1, sometimes none, because the Palestinian protest, for example, right? The things that happen where people are protesting the street, they're hitting cops with bricks or they're looting. Sorry, brother. I know you're supposed to have Monday and Tuesday off, but we're going to take that away from you. We need you to go stand foot at this area. Now you work 7 days a week, and that rolls into the next week, right? So just think about that for a second. The police departments across the country, it doesn't matter if you live in Maine, it doesn't matter if you're in Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Idaho, Ohio, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York, Baltimore, Pennsylvania, right? Seattle, Portland. I can go on. I can name all 50 states, right? It doesn't matter where you are as a police officer. Police officers are deployed 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You don't call 911 and get a message, hey, sorry, we're not at the phone right now because we're off. Please leave a message at the beep and we'll get back to you to handle your emergency as when we can, right? You call 911, somebody picks up. 911 operator, what's your emergency? Hi, I'm having a medical emergency. Hi, my boyfriend's trying to kill me. Ma'am, sir, just be calm, stay calm. The police are on their way. Talk to me, da-da-da-da-da. And police show up. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I don't know if anyone's ever broke that down to you like that, because I didn't think about it one day till somebody broke it like that down to me. And I was like, shit, yeah, we are deployed. Not overseas, like the military, and they deal with their own, battles and things like that. But domestically, we're deployed. And I can say for the New York City Police Department, I don't know about other agencies, but we do have a handful of agents or police officers that work with multiple agencies, FBI, Secret Service, CIA, that are deployed in other countries. countries that are well known for terrorist activities, right? Afghanistan and this and London and Paris, where all these bombings and things happen. We have agents that are over there gathering intel, sending it back to New York City to the higher ups and things like that, of whatever intelligence, so on and so forth. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24/7. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah, I've never heard it broken down like that before.
So when I hear defund the police, it's the most stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. And I'm not saying that because I'm a cop. I'm just saying that from a regular human being's perspective. The same people that say that are the same people that'll turn and run as soon as bullets start flying, as soon as chaos erupts, right? It takes a special individual, like we said, a little while ago, to be able to put the uniform on and know that, hey, you know what? There could be a chance that I might not come home tonight. It's not something you think about, but that's a reality. When I go to work, I say my prayer, I tell my mom I love them, and I always make sure that I spend most of my time wherever I'm doing in the moment. Because I can leave and go to work, and there's a percentage of a chance something might happen, right? That I might not come home. I signed on the dotted line to protect the community and to protect this city from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that comes at a price, right? And when you think about that, that comes at a heavy price for some people. Some people make the ultimate sacrifice and they don't come home so that you or the neighbor or the next person who lives in that city can walk their dog, pick up their dog shit, go get their $2.75 coffee, go get their slice of pizza, go to work, right? So the defund the police thing it makes no sense to me, because when people need help, who do they call?
The police.
And even serving at a higher level that I want to serve at in my organization, which is ESU or counterintelligence or counterterrorism. When the police get in trouble, who do they call? They call SWAT. They call ESU. They call the police, right? So the defund the police is just, it makes no sense to me, because when you need help, you call the police. And guess what? They're going to show up. So again, going back to what I said, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, police are deployed domestically and in certain organizations and internationally for intelligence purposes. But think about that.
That's a fantastic point.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy when you think about it like that, right?
Yeah, and it's something that it's one of those things too, like where you always we take things for granted. We take
100%.
And it's not till something's not working where it's like, oh man, this is inconvenient. But yeah, imagine the police calling 911 and, yep, sorry, not open today, or
can't handle your emergency. Sorry, you guys defunded us.
Yeah.
You know how much chaos would erupt?
Oh,
I don't think that'll ever happen. But do you like, just think about that? Someone's getting robbed. Somebody's breaking in someone's apartment. Do you know the level of chaos? It would literally be like an everyday version of The Purge. You ever seen that movie?
I know of it. I haven't seen it.
It's where, like, for one day, the people get to purge and do whatever the hell that they want to do in the nights. Don't come outside at night because the purge is happening. Lock your doors, stay inside, and blah, 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 blah. Could you imagine in one of the most busiest cities in the whole entire country, let alone the world? Could you imagine if there was no police? Think about that for a second. Imagine if there, matter of fact, we'll use Los Angeles because that's where we are right now. Just imagine in Los Angeles County, not Ventura County, not Santa Clarita, even though I know it's not Orange County, not San Diego, not Sacramento, not San Francisco. Safe to say Los Angeles County is humongous. We have Burbank Police, Burbank Police, you got, LAPD, you got, Compton, West, this, that,
Glendale.
North Hollywood, Glendale. Just imagine for a second if the whole Los Angeles County was defunded and the police were non-existent. Do you understand the sheer chaos and violence that would happen 30 seconds after that went through and they were walking out and going home?
I'd be hoping the 170 would be open to get out of here.
Yeah, just think about that. Just think about that for a second, right? So when people say defund the police, it makes no sense to me because again, I'm not making excuses. There are some bad apples and there are some shit that has happened throughout the, unfortunately, over and over again, history, right? Some things that have happened from the Rodney King to the Eric Gardner to, a bunch of other cases that happen. But that's just a small fraction of the bad. The police do a lot of good, right? People always talk about, I'll give you another example. I'll give you another thing to think about. Not everyone, but most people, the people that defund the police, right? No one ever talks about when the police dies in the line of duty, when they put their life on the line to save another human being that they don't even know. Think about that for a second. A cop, a detective, a sergeant, or whatever it may be, a police officer in a specialized unit show up to a job, domestic violence, car stop, man with the knife, man with the machete, man with the gun. And they show up with the intentions to help someone, and they wind up paying the ultimate sacrifice, and they don't get to go home to their loved ones. That's someone's son. That's someone's daughter. That's someone's brother. That's someone's sister. That's someone's granddaughter. That's someone's grandson. They paid the ultimate sacrifice for a person they didn't even know to save whoever was in need. Whether if a person with a gun trying to hurt someone else, they stepped in and did something to save that person. And now they're going to sleep forever. And that family gets a flag. And my condolences. Think about that. The officers, how many officers have died in the line of duty because of someone's cowardice act? Right? People robbing or someone shooting a cop or someone dying by suicide of a cop, right? Hurting a cop, right? Drunk behind the wheel, driving when they had no business driving because their license was revoked. Crash into a cop car, kills a cop. Cop shows up to a call, domestic violence. Guy wants to hurt his wife. They get into a scuffle. Cop winds up succumbing to his injuries. He gets shot. Or a cop just sitting in his patrol car and a freaking lunatic comes up on the patrol car, right? From around the corner. You're just sitting there watching the area, make sure everything's good. And I'm sure you've seen it countless times. Someone comes up and lets off because they got an illegal gun from the street, that has all these modifications to it where they could shoot 5, 6, 7 bullets at one time. And they kill 2 cops sitting in a patrol car. Nobody talks about that, though. But people want to talk about defunding the police. It's crazy to me. It makes no sense. What happens when, someone gets robbed? The same people that are saying defund the police, are you going to step up and help that person? What happened when a mother is screaming at the top of her lungs, please, my daughter is in that building. Help. Please help me. You want me to tell you what those people are going to say? Especially people in New York. Fuck off. That's not my job. You can't. When someone needs help, the first words out of most people's mouth, somebody call 911. So the whole defunding police thing makes no sense to me. Does the system need to change? Yeah, sure. There's some things that need to be changed. Absolutely. From training, tactics, a bunch of things. Communication, right? Flat out, some people just shouldn't be on the job because they have no business doing the job. They may be book smart and they could take tests, but it's deeper than that, right? And so I do believe there are some people that shouldn't be on the job and they should go work at a coffee shop or go be an Amazon delivery driver, right? Because in police line of work, hesitation or doing something unethical or wrong can get yourself killed and get someone else killed, right? I mean, look at the history, right? We see things that happen, certain things that kind of like, man, this could have, you start Monday Night Quarterbacking and thinking like, oh, if I was there, I would have, but the reality is you weren't there and you don't know if you've never been put in that situation. Is it effed up that some of these situations happen where the interactions with cops and civilians that go a bad way and some people die? Absolutely. And I feel bad for that person who passed away, and most of the time, more so for the families, right? But that shouldn't overshadow the good work that the men and women and police organizations do across the country, let alone the NYPD. But I do believe that things need to change for sure. For sure. But to defund the police thing, it just makes no sense to me. It's like oil and water. It doesn't go together. You know? I think policing is the backbone of this country. And again, there's things that should change, and certain things that could change, and that we could do things as a whole, starting from the top, right? From the top of the organization down to make things better. But the defund the police thing is just, it shouldn't happen. It'll never happen, I believe, because this country would be chaos and anarchy without policing.
It's a great breakdown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for having me, on the podcast. I hope that I was able to shed some light, on policing, and give a little bit of my stories and my backgrounds and some examples. But I'm grateful to have to be on your platform. You have an amazing platform, an amazing team, an amazing staff. I've watched some of your stuff prior to being on here, and I think you're doing a great thing. And I hope that this opens the door to other individuals, whether they're in the line of policing, in the line of security, in the line of firefighting, any governmental work or things like that. Hopefully, it opens the door for other peoples to come on and share their stories, and use your platform to spread awareness and things like that. So I'm grateful. Thank you, Sam.
Oh, well, thank you. You're very welcome. And thank you for coming on and sharing all this. And thank you for everything you're doing, and for you for setting a great example
I try.
of what it takes to wear that badge.
I always say being a cop is what I do. It's not who I am, though, right? Like, I am, I do have a life outside of this, right? I got a beautiful fiance. I have a beautiful 19-month-old daughter. I have a stepson. I have a mom. I got sisters. I got a life outside of this. And I think that that's another thing that people get misconstrued is, and, some people, they do let the uniform overshadow them and take them over as a whole. And they forget who they are. Like, hey, man, this is just a uniform, and this is just a career and a calling for me. But outside of this, I'm Frank. I like to go on hikes, right? I like to work out, right? I like to listen to music, right? I like to go to the park, right? I'm 6'2", 250. So if you look at me, for some people, they're like, wow, this guy's pretty, big. But, behind the badge, behind just regular clothes, I'm a dad. I like to go to the park. I get my face painted. I chase my daughter around. I sip coffee and I read books and I go hiking and things like that. So it's not who I am. It's what I chose, or what I can say what chose me. And I believe I'm serving at a calling to help people and serving a community. But there's also another side to me, as well. And I think that gets lost in the sauce and translation as well. Most people, they that's all that they know, and then they let that consume them. And I promise myself that I won't, because it can F your life up. There are people who, because they see so much violence and so much chaos wearing the badge, and they do get desensitized. But some people also suffer PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they succumb to those things. Some people, a lot of cops take their own life because of their suffering in silence. There's no outlet, right? Because cops are bad, and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, they're humans too, man. So it's just a uniform. You know what I'm saying? And just think about, I'll leave you with this. Think about all the stuff that cops have to deal with on a daily basis, right? A 14-year-old girl being raped, right? How do you talk to her parents, right? Or better yet, seeing a mother put her baby in a microwave or an oven, or you just show up on a scene and the baby's dead. Like, at the end of the day, you're human, dude. That still F's with your mind, Having to make a phone call to someone you don't know. Hey, I'm sorry to Are you such and such? Yeah, I'm sorry to break this down, but I just wanted to let you know that, your son and daughter passed away in a car accident. I'm sorry. That plays with your psychological. If you're a human being and I know that, at the door when we go into work, we check our emotions and we check our, nothing's personal and you leave your emotions at the door. It's just business. But fuck, dude, we're humans too, you know? So I think again, it takes a special person to do this job, and we are humans at the end of the day, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of cops that are suffering, and I think that's where part of the change needs to happen as well. I think there needs to be a bigger effort into helping uh, see the signs of cops that need help, right? Because of the stuff that we see on a daily basis, right? Murders, robberies, rapes, the constant chaos. You're just like, fuck, you know? Imagine being at a heightened level every single day. Not just you, but your counterpart. Again, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So just think about that, right? The next time you see, not necessarily you, but speaking to the audience and the people out there, the next time you see a cop, don't be afraid to say hi. Don't be afraid to shake their hand. Don't be afraid to say, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate what you do. Because you don't have no idea what that person, that cop, let alone that individual is going through. They could be getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks after just coming from fucking seeing their mother throw their child down the incinerator trash can. And they have to go down there and identify the body and pick up the remains. And they're just trying to get a cup of coffee to calm down. Right? So, or they just came from a car crash where someone's head is severed. And I know it sounds graphic, but again, I just wanted to leave people with that, just to think about that for a second, right? We're just humans as well. Some cops, there are some bad ones, but there are way more good than bad. So the next time you see a cop, don't be afraid to say, hey, thanks, man, for what you do. I appreciate your service. You don't have to buy them coffee or do nothing crazy, but you'd be surprised how much a thank you goes a long way. That person could be on the brink of like, you know what? Today's the day that I'm going to go home and I'm going to stick my gun in my mouth. Because I'm just so effed up from the things that I've seen that, I can't take it no more. And that thank you, or that, hey, man, keep up the great work. I appreciate your service. My son's, works in another precinct or wherever it may be. Or, we're so grateful to have you guys around. Please let me buy you a cup of coffee. Not that you have to do that, or let me get you a meal, or please, let me just get you a water. Thank you for your service. That could be the thank you that's like, I do matter. I am enough. Let me get help. People do care, and I don't want to get too deep and dive in. I just wanted to leave that message of awareness that, don't be afraid to, just say thank you or just say hello or have a great day. That costs nothing.
I love that. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
I always do give the guests the last word, but that last word was pretty epic.
that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Thank you again for having me on your platform. I love what you're doing with your platform. I look forward to seeing more that you do. And I'm just grateful to be able to sit in this chair and honored to be on your platform, to be able to just share a little bit of my little background and where I'm from and the things that I've done and, what I'm currently doing now. And hopefully, whatever message, comes across to people, hopefully it's a good one. And, you can get more people on here to continue to tell their story from wherever they're from, continue to push the platform hopefully forward, and more people can, help with the change, and maybe this will reach someone or help someone in some shape, form, or fashion. So thank you for having me on your platform. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And thank you, Frank. Grateful for you, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
All
buddy.
right. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast, and give us a follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you soon.